And gentlemen, we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 22 of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. Just trying to get everything set up there. I think we're ready to go. The date today is Tuesday, May the 14th, 2019, our second Tuesday in a row, but that's because Tony and I have had to juggle some things around. People have been asking me, is it Tuesdays now? It's not. It will always primarily be on Sundays, but every so often, because Tony and I are doing our shit, we may have to push it to the Monday or push it to the Tuesday or maybe go back a day, whatever the case is. So always expect that might happen every so often, but Sunday is the primary day. And anyway, so yeah, episode 22, Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 and 2. Tony, how the hell are you?
Oh man, it's gonna be a shit show tonight, buddy. The long, very much anticipated wait is over. I know the YouTube universe has been waiting for what does Dave McRae think of Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 and 2.
They know what I think, but I've never gone into detail on what I've thought about them. Even when I did a ranking video of the Halloween movies, I deliberately left Rob Zombie's films off the list, not because I wasn't fond of them, but because I wanted to sort of just it's like comparing apples and oranges. I mean, to me, to include the two Rob Zombie Halloween films in with the original sort of, series is like comparing apples and oranges. So it's very difficult for me to do that, which is why I didn't include that. But that's really the only, and then of course you'll hear me from time to time say, it's a fucking shit show. It's, whatever the case is. So yeah, but I haven't talked about it. But today, Tony and I are going to be talking about it as I clean my glasses here. They are filthy.
As he becomes Clark Kent again, guys.
That's right.
Superman, Super Dave.
That's right. I am Superman right now. Hang on, watch this. Hi, how are you? Hi, how are you?
A moment ago when you did that first hi, how are you? You look like a 1970s porn star.
Maybe I am. Zeno Zuma super chat. Thank you, Zeno. But just a reminder for everybody in the chat room who may not know, we appreciate the super chats, of course. The more the better, because obviously they go right back into the channel. But we usually reserve that for the last half of the show when we open it up to questions. Because if you ask now, Tony and I are going to be very busy talking about the thing and we're going to miss it and we don't want to have to stop and start. So as much as I appreciate it, love Zombies Halloween 1, hated the sequel. Okay, cool. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. But let's wait till the Q&A portion of the show. Other than that, 109 people watching already. This is it. This is where Tony and I are going to be talking about Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 and 2 from 2007 and 2009. Now, first of all,
years since the last one. Wow.
It's 10 years since Zombies Halloween 2, 12 years since the original. Tony, let's first start here. Let's see if we can get through this fairly fast. Your first experience with Rob Zombie's Halloween?
The first one, it was an okay experience. I can tell you exactly how. My uncle took me and a buddy of mine. He ended up getting premiere tickets before it came out. My uncle was a big Halloween fan, big horror fanatic like me, just passing down the torch from one, uncle to nephew here. And it was a cool experience to experience a Halloween movie in theaters with my uncle. That was the plus side. My uncle is old school. He's like you. He's a purist when it comes to horror films, Halloween and Psycho and all those films. And he just really felt like, damn, first words that came out of his mouth was, this was like some trailer trash shit. Literally, those were his first words. And I didn't necessarily mind the first one when I walked out of the theater, and even still to this day I don't mind it as much. I do like is it Tyler Bates? He's the one who did the score, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
I like his version of the Halloween theme. It's cool. I have actually, I'll play it from time to time on my Spotify playlist. You know, but when it comes to Rob Zombie, I have a weird thing with him. I like some of his music. I run to a lot of his music and work out on a heavy bag to his music because it just amps you up. But his movies, I've never been really that big a fan of. House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects. Yeah, that's, you know, I think that's in everyone's video archives. But after that, you know, other than the Halloween movies, I don't know what it is. It's not just the gore, because it's easy to just go after the gore. It's just something about the way he stylized a horror film. I don't get scared. You know what I mean? It's more like I get disturbed, not disturbed in the sense of a scary way, like almost like a disturbed, like, this is just not right. You know what I mean? Like when you look at like John Carpenter's version of Halloween and you watch that, you almost watch it from two perspectives, like, Jesus, this is a beautiful cinematic masterpiece. And that's how you effectively get across good scares. And then you go to Rob Zombie's and, you know, and like Dave said a moment ago, it's like comparing apples to oranges here when you're comparing the 78 to the 2007 Halloween. Rob Zombie, I just think I know what he was attempting to do. I just think he went too far over the line, and I wish he had kind of brought it back, because had he brought it back a little bit, I think more people would be very positive, even though I know a lot of people like the first Halloween versus his second one, which is a fucking Greek tragedy. I think his first vision would have been even that much more better. And I wish he didn't approach it from the typical Rob Zombie. I really wish he had just said, you know what, I'm going to approach this as an artist and really make sure I stay true to the Halloween fan base. Dave?
My first experience with Rob Zombie's Halloween, of course, when I knew that they were making a remake, I was very skeptical, because I was familiar with who Rob Zombie was, and of course, The House of a Thousand Corpses, The Devil's Rejects. Yep. And when he was hired to direct a Halloween movie, my first thought was, oh, okay. Okay. And then I went to go see it. And I actually went to go see it with my mother, who was a big Halloween fan. Now, my mother in 2007 would have been like 62 or something like that. And so you can imagine the first 5 minutes of Rob Zombie's Halloween, and you're sitting there with your 62-year-old mother. I mean, like, holy...
You're hearing some guy go, I'm going to skull fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's certainly...
Dave must have been like, oh, sorry.
No, yeah, it certainly wasn't off to a great start. But the thing with Rob Zombie's, like, I mean, I watched it, I walked out of the theater, I didn't like it. And the reason I didn't like it was because it felt very much like Rob Zombie didn't... It's like, okay, Rob Zombie as a filmmaker has a very specific style, and a lot of filmmakers do, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
But Rob Zombie grew up with 70s horror, and he loves that style of horror. He loves that torture porn,
the meat cleaver massacre shit.
Right, exactly. And that's okay. I mean, there are a lot of people that like that. But when Rob Zombie approaches horror, when you watch a Rob Zombie film, it's not by accident that each and every movie he does, he has a white trash hick, element to his movies. And the first Halloween felt very... I knew what he was trying to do, but it didn't distinguish himself from what Rob Zombie does anyway. And this was the problem, is that if I went out and made a movie where Michael Myers, whether you like it or not, doesn't matter. If I have a track record of making movies that aren't geared towards that, and all of a sudden I make a movie where the opening is about this boy who's going through this, horrible thing with these parents and a mom and a stepdad and a sister, and weird shit going on between the stepdad and the sister. And he's clearly like, if I was to, it almost seems a little more organic. It seems a little more sort of you buy into it a bit more, because it's not just a Dave McRae thing. Oh, he's just doing what Dave McRae does. Yes, it's not The Devil's Rejects. Yes, it's not A House of a Thousand Corpses. It's different, but he's taking that style and taking that white trash and just overselling it. It's just so, you know, unnecessary. It just seems like it's like when somebody has nothing to say, they just get louder, if you know what I mean. Right. And it seems like he doesn't have a lot there to say. So he just gets really loud with his president. Oh, Skull, fuck you, bitch. And everyone goes, whoa, whoa. And it's like, yeah, but what's the story here? Well, that's about Michael Myers coming. Yeah, but there's so many ways you can utilize that are much more disturbing and much more sort of subtle, but just as equally as effective than just doing what you always do. It seems like he's got to go to the extreme all the time to sort of make this point. And then he was hogtied because I have no doubt Malek Akkad said, you know, we got to have some Halloween. All the shit you like about Rob Zombie's Halloween, the Halloween shit, yep. Rob Zombie would never have done that. No. A lot of people say that they tend to like Halloween 1 over Halloween 2. And I can't speak for everybody in the chat room, but a lot of the people that I've come across, I say, what do you like about Rob Zombie's Halloween? And they'll go through, you know, a list. And some people really do like the fact that there's a backstory and all that. Okay, fine. But I'm going to say about 75 to 80% of people, which is a lot of people, yep. will tell me that they really like this or they really like that, you know, they really like this. And when you break it down, you realize that they're talking about the Easter egg Halloween-y things yep. that are being updated for this movie. Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool. I like how he did it. Or like Rob Zombie he would never have done that if it wasn't for Malek Akkad. Yep. Because one of the things he said after he never wanted to come back for part 2. And one of the reasons why he didn't want to come back for part 2 is because he didn't feel that he would get the opportunity to do whatever the fuck he wanted. And then when they gave him the green light to do whatever the fuck he wanted, you get Halloween 2, which is night and day compared to, there's no Easter eggs at all. I mean, you could make the argument and say, well, there's the hospital, you know, in the beginning, but at the end of the day, it is a complete 180. He's trying to be cerebral with it. He's trying to add some, you know, the white horse and the subconscious. And this is what Michael sees. And of course, it's hereditary because now we got Laurie. All that stuff. You would have gotten that out of the gate in the first movie if Rob Zombie had his way. Yep. And I just think that when you are recreating something, it's too extreme. It's I don't mean to go on here, but watching Halloween 2 for the first time in years, Rob Zombie's, mm-hmm. I realized that you can change Michael Myers to somebody completely different and you lose nothing in the movie. There's no Halloween music. There's no real Halloween atmosphere. Yep. You can say that he's not Michael Myers. His name is Brutus Johnson. Brutus. That's a big kind of name. His name is Brutus Johnson. And every time they say Michael Myers, change it to Brutus and the movie stays the same. You lose nothing. I mean, I understand that, you know, but change that. And it's the same. It feels like that's just, I think if that's what it was, it probably would have been just not a bad little horror movie. Yeah. Part 2, it's just this weird fucking Rob Zombie horror film. But because he's following it up with the Halloween shit that he had already set, which he never wanted to do, Halloween 2 just comes off as it's like what Rian Johnson sort of like you set up and then you abandon it and you go over here and it's like you can't do that. If you wanted to do the white horse shit with the cerebral nature and the subconscious, you should have been doing that from the beginning. Yeah. Because
the thing I didn't understand, because I just watched part 2. I watched it in reverse order today, literally today. I watched, and I didn't even finish part 1. I'm at like the last 12 minutes of the movie here. I was watching it before we went live. But I watched part 2 first because I've seen the first one enough that I knew during the stream I could recall shit if I needed to. But with part 2, what I didn't understand was this, okay? You're getting this, I will pull out some of the positives here because there's so much that we can shit on and there's very, very little positives that I don't think it's going to take more than 2 minutes to talk about the positives of his second film. And that is one, you're getting this really good performance out of Scout. I've always said that, and I've said this on several streams, you know, go back and watch them. Her performance of Laurie dealing with the post-traumatic stress, which is the first time we've ever seen that in a Halloween film. I know the 2018 film, they wanted to go on record as saying, we're giving you something new and different that you've never seen before. Well, that's not entirely true because Rob Zombie, with his character version of Laurie Strode, You saw that. You saw Scout and Margot Kidder there in that scene there where, you know, she's Margot Kidder's her shrink and whatnot. And I like that he kind of tapped into that because we never really knew what the fuck Laurie went through after Halloween. And you got a stellar performance out of Scout with that. I just wish he didn't go into like the trippy visions at times. Like for example, when she has that freak out moment in the car when the reveal in the book that she's Michael's sister, which again, I when watching that, I was like, motherfuckers, the 2018 film ripped off another scene. Not entirely, but like my mind immediately went to Jamie Lee freaking out in the car in the recent 2018 film. And I had totally forgotten that Scout had that moment in the movie back in the 2009 Halloween 2 version where she freaks out in the car. And it's like moments like that, I was like, man, you're getting this stellar performance from your actress, but you're surrounding the fucking story with garbage. And then like you just pointed out here, the only other really good positive thing that I can pull from this is that hospital scene. To me, it felt like he put all his energy and focus into this. To me, it's one of my favorite. I mean, I even hate uttering this. I feel like I'm going to throw up saying it, but it really is one of my favorite Halloween scenes from all the Halloween movies. He really executed that hospital scene. In fact, I like it a little bit better than the 81 version hospital scene. There's just something about it that was just, it was just all, and I really think that everything was put into that one scene for him as a director. And after that, I think he just sat back fucking smoking some shit and was just like, I don't give a fuck. And I'm just going to throw in. It just felt like this, like he was just throwing in so much shit. And I'm just like, oh, where the fuck are we going? And
well,
then,
okay. The hospital scene at the beginning of Halloween 2 was great because it was moody and atmospheric, and the thunder was a nice touch, and you know, out in the rain and the vulnerability and all that.
Good atmosphere. Well done.
Sure. Yeah. It was fine for what it was, but it was a dream sequence, and in that kind of context, it can rub people the wrong way because then you realize, oh, that never actually really happened.
Exactly.
So then you realize that's just within her, you know, her subconscious, which Scout's performance was good. I mean, it was fine, but she, you know, you can't just say somebody who's, I'm just, you know, playing the devil's advocate here in the sense of, yes, she was doing very well. The performance was good, but she's screaming. I mean, that's what she's doing.
Right.
You know, she's screaming and yelling every 5 seconds, and you know, and she's having like, you know, the trippy visions, and the idea that you can sort of like, she became the most interesting thing about the movie. I don't care about Michael Myers. Michael Myers could not have returned in Halloween 2, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, and I would not have given a shit. I would. Myers and Loomis were lame ducks, completely irrelevant in the movie. And
oh, don't get me started on Loomis.
But it's not a movie that's very good because it's what Rob Zombie does, and he does it well, but what he does is he gets loud and he gets obnoxious and he gets hickey. I mean, this is I don't know if this is supposed to be in Illinois or someplace in, you know, Mississippi. No offense to somebody in, you know, Mississippi, but you know, when you see the gratuitous white trash hick, so that's what he does, you know, and it seems weird to suddenly, you know, all of a sudden it's like, get the fuck out of here, man, you fucking piece of shit. Like, I just don't understand why that's his default. And maybe it's how he grew up. His parents obviously were part of a carnival. And he probably saw a lot of shit. He's a big fan of old Italian, you know, horror movies and the Hammer films and the, you know, and when you watch those like Texas Chainsaw Massacre type of movies, that's his style. So he brings that to Halloween. The problem is, folks, is that when you are setting this up as a remake, it should have been,
folks, just say no to drugs.
Well, no, it should have been, it should have been like that from the very beginning. And because I have a big issue with watching a movie that is telling me that's just loud. It's just like when you think of the story of Halloween 2, when you think of the story, there's not a lot there.
No.
There's not a lot there. Now, it's interesting. He tried to work some symbolism into the movie right from the very beginning, of course. We see the white horse on the desk. Mummy, I had a dream with you, you know, in a white horse. As he gets older, of course, she's not literally there. That's his subconscious. That's what he's seeing. She is not literally there, you know, actually there. But the white horse is a symbol. Then, of course, we see the picture above Margot, you know, Kidder. This is a white horse. If you're seeing, that's the connection that's being made, right? To obviously that whatever is getting fucked up inside of Myers is it hereditary, which is why there's the question, right, from the very beginning when Loomis is talking about his book and the reporter says, you know, have you talked about, or I don't think you've talked about, or you haven't answered the question about nature versus nurture, right? So is this, you know, is Michael the way he is because of the product of his environment and how he grew up? Okay. Or is it just, you know, it's just hereditary, perhaps. It's just maybe there's something, if you go down in his line and there's something that it's, you know, you can see that there's something, there's, you know, evidence of psychosis and psychotic behavior further down his line. And it was only a matter of time because, you know, it was a snap. And then, of course, that transfers over to Laurie. And that's what the movie's trying to sort of tell you is that, oh, this is sort of it. But that's interesting. It's interesting. And he was trying to bring a cerebral element to it. The problem is that he's doing it within the context of just this loud, obnoxious white trash environment. And you lose me because it cuts away. And I got to watch like this fucking scene with Myers, you know, hobo bum guy just ripping apart, you know, a stripper and it's just, I don't care about this. I don't care about this. You know, and it's just too loud and obnoxious. And, you know, it's just, you know, it's like when you're in a fight with somebody and they just get louder. They're not necessarily smarter. They're just louder, you know, and they start making all these points that seem like they're saying something, but they're not. They're just really loud. So it seems like, and that's kind of like how he approaches his movies and how he approached this. And unfortunately, the mistake was made that the original Halloween from 2007, the first one, I'm sorry, Rob Zombie's films, was a hybrid of both. And that's why a lot of people like it, because there's some Halloween, there's the shit that you like from the original series in that movie, or especially that first film. Laurie's, you know, up in the classroom. She looks out the window. There's Myers standing there watching her. And in case you didn't notice, he's standing in front of the original Strode house, you know, and so there's all these little things and people are like, oh, I like that. Or I like it was shot in Pasadena. Oh, did you know? Yeah. But outside of that, that's the stuff you like.
Right.
I've yet to meet somebody who really actually does love, oh, go there, skull, fuck you, bitch. Now, maybe you like the idea that you're getting a bit of a backstory, but there's very few people that and the first 30 minutes of that first movie is all that. Yeah. It's all backstory, and it's just, oh my God, it goes on and on. I know what he's doing. He's trying to say, this is where he comes from. Well, yeah, but that's all your movies, Rob. All your movies are like that. So what's proprietary about this? I just feel like I'm watching a Rob Zombie movie. That's the problem. I don't feel like I'm watching a genuine organic take on this boy that was like, oh shit, look, because that's what you do in all your movies. So I don't feel like I'm just feel like I'm watching you doing you. I don't feel like you're being inventive somehow, or you were in the writer's room. Oh, right. Because that's just what you do. That's just what you do. You know, is that everybody's a hick. You gotta, everybody's, and the scene between Daniel Harris, no, fuck you, I don't fucking care. Well, fuck this, I don't fucking, like, holy shit, they drop more F-bombs than I do in a fucking show. Like, I mean, it's like, oh my God. And I'm not a prude, obviously, but I'm just like, it just seems like it's that, you know, it's that extra, it's a very sad, you know, at the end of Halloween 2, I was like, this is just a sad, this is a story about a real white trash, fucked up family from what seems like the South, when really it's supposed to be Illinois.
Right.
And I don't know, are there any towns in Illinois that are, that are hick like that? You got a hick sheriff, you know, you got a hick, you know, adult club down the road. You got Hick, it just seems like we're not in Illinois. Not that, I mean, everybody's got their little, little quirks. But
I liked Brad Dourif's.
Brad Dourif, he was probably the most redeeming actor in the thing because he's a good actor anyway. It's like Malcolm McDowell. Malcolm McDowell
was good in the first one.
Yes, and then he was directed to be a putz in the second one. And
that's which is so stupid.
Well, he was using, actually, by the end of the movie, I forgot he was even in it. So
seriously, yeah, and to piggyback off what you just said here, in what you were talking about with regards to the hospital scene at the beginning of Halloween 2, with when she's being brought in there and she's screaming off the top of her lungs, she really has me brought into her character now. That
absolutely,
you just went through something fucking totally traumatic, and yeah, this is how I would picture. This is what Laurie's going through, but the problem was, like you just said, when you execute it as a dream, it totally diminishes how good you just delivered this scene to us. And number two, you just kept repeating that same beat with Scout throughout the whole fucking movie. Well, other than, like I said, the moment she had there with Margot Kidder, great moment. One of my favorite moments in the film. And there were some other moments throughout that, like I said, the freak out of her in the car. But like you said, man, everything else, all of a sudden it starts getting into this like weird trippy shit. There's this one scene where she's laying in a coffin and it has that like Marilyn Manson fast fucking effect that you would see in Marilyn Manson videos back in the 90s and shit. And why are you doing this, dude?
All that is, and you know this, Tony, all that is I understand what he's doing. I get it. But just because you're quick cutting and you're adding sound effects and doing all this, that's not, so what? That's glitz, that's glam, that's icing. Right? I mean, anybody could do that. I can get a bunch of clips of all of us and put it together and make it look, what the fuck's going on, right?
Have you ever seen his video Dragula? The song?
No, I haven't.
Well, if you ever watched that video, Dragula, okay, I'm pretty sure this is basically how the conversation went with him and the editors of the video. So, Rob, what effects do you want? All of them. Okay, where do you want them? All throughout the whole video. Like, literally, if you ever watch that, and if anyone in the chat room knows what I'm talking about, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That whole video is just, it's just oversaturated with effects, and it's like, I mean, it's a cool video for the time, but you're right. That's what he does in his film here. It's just like he throws in so much shit, and I'm like, bro, no, why are you doing this?
And after watching both movies for the first time in years, I said this actually a while ago. My hat goes off to Zombie for being true to what he does, and that's what he does. But that doesn't mean I have to like it. Right. And people want to know my thoughts on it, and they say, well, here's what it is. The problem people have is that it's a complete 180 from where you're coming from, right? And that's why with the Rob Zombie films, I believe it was during one of the trailers, Ashton Smith, who was the one that did the movie trailer for, he's a really nice guy, for the first Halloween. In the script to what Ashton was reading, there was, and I believe he also did the second trailer as well, the word reimagining appears in there. And that was deliberate on purpose, especially I believe it was the second trailer, Rob Zombie completes his vision or his ultimate, whatever it is. And that's fine. But the problem is that I don't understand unless Malika Akkad thought, well, we got to go complete 180 to we can't remake it, so we're just going to go completely 180. But it's not. He has. I think my problem is, like I said, not to beat a dead horse, no pun intended, but I don't see any difference. And when you're doing, like, when the backstory is supposed to be Michael coming from, well, I just think, yeah, but that's just what you do, Rob. Like, every movie, your characters are like that, and you were, and you only didn't continue that on because Malick wouldn't allow you, right? In the first film. The only reason why you didn't continue on the white trash after it came to 2007, right, is because Malick wouldn't allow you. He told you, no, Myers has got to come to Haddonfield, and we're going to do the tropes, and we're going to do the little tips of the hat, and we're going to have Annie and Linda, and we're going to have, See Anything You Like, and we're going to have, but just, do it your own way. But Rob would never have done that. No. I guarantee you that was painful for Rob because he had to spend so much time recreating someone else's work in his own way, when really he wanted to just go balls to the wall and fucking just light it up like a Christmas tree of just unbelievable, whatever the fuck he was going to do. And maybe he should have done that. Maybe he should have.
Which is unfortunate, because in the first Halloween, I will say this, Scout, she doesn't make me feel like I'm missing Jamie Lee Curtis, because she made Laurie her own. Same thing with the way Malcolm McDowell. I mean, Malcolm McDowell obviously is a class act actor, Clockwork, and so on and so forth. He made me feel like, you know what? If there was someone else that was going to don the mask of, no pun on the mask part, but of Dr. Loomis, Malcolm McDowell did a fucking awesome job in that first film. And I'm thinking to myself, like, dude, you have this set up perfect, okay? To carry on, these characters, the whole approach of Loomis, this prima donna in the second film, was like, what in the fuck are you doing? You're literally diminishing this iconic character who is so beloved in this series. Like, I understand making shit your own. He should have just really, as a creator, you need to bow out at this point, And
well, I think what would have been interesting in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is if, instead of disconnecting Loomis from the movie and hiring Margot Kidder, and no knock to Margot Kidder, rest in peace, but I think it would, because you end because you end Rob Zombie's Halloween in 2007 with essentially Loomis trying to come to Laurie's aid, and getting the crap kicked out of him, and of course, all that. But because there was that, they now share a connection. And I think it would have been, because you're fast forwarding 2 years into the future, it may have been more interesting from a character standpoint to have Loomis as her psychiatrist. You see,
or what about Loomis totally broken down, like, feeling like he was responsible for this?
Well, that's what I mean. And that's why he sort of takes her on as her psychiatrist, and then we see a dynamic begin to build between Laurie and Loomis, and then Loomis begins to recognize certain things. If you want to keep the cerebral angle of, okay, well, we have the nature versus nurture. Is this hereditary? Is this a product of the environment? Because basically, Zombie is alluding to the fact that it was in her the whole time. It just took a horrific environment, horrific incident to have it come out of her. Because had this never had happened, and she continued to grow up with the Strode family, this may never have happened. You may never have seen this. But because this horrific event happens, she's fucking lost her mind now. She's off her rockers, they say. It might have been interesting to see a dynamic between Loomis and Laurie and that build, and she leaves, and she can yell at him, and she can leave, and he begins to get really worried, and he can still have that book, and just kind of add a bit of, because he seems like he just seems like this guy that's just out. I don't understand what he's doing. Now I'm watching a Rob Zombie film. Now I'm watching there's more focus on the swearing and the trash and why are the ambulance guys, why are they trash? Like, this is what I don't understand. Why are the ambulance guys that are transporting Michael's body, why do you have to write, fucking the tits, eh? Well, fucking those tits are my fucking dirty. I'm like, Rob, like,
well, now I'm gonna ask you something, because Bud with his song, man, it's not that different. Bud singing "Amazing Grace," "Come Sit on My Face."
No. Yeah, that's. Yes, but you don't, in my opinion anyway, you don't get the sense that, I never got the sense that Bud was white trash. I just got the sense that Bud he was just fucking around. Yeah. He's just sitting there going, "Amazing Grace, come sit on my face." He's just fucking around, right? And then Jimmy, he steps in essentially, right? And is like, what does he say? Why don't you shut the hell up? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, don't fall in love with her, girly boy, or whatever the fuck he says. Like, but there's a dynamic there. He's older, he's younger, he's just fucking. I never got the sense that Bud was white trash, right? But because it's not coming out of his mouth every 5 seconds, and he's not saying things and weaving his words and sentences that make you think he's a few bricks shy of load. But when you enter Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 or any Rob Zombie film, he lives in this world where he has every expendable character has got to be this white trash. It's almost like I don't care about these ambulance guys. You know, and the fact that I don't care about them, now you have to up the ante of the violence and make it gratuitous and intense, because you have to make me go, whoa, whoa, and get those sound effects in there and, you know, and all that shit, because I don't care about them dying. So I better care about how they die.
Sure.
Right. You know, I don't care that the ambulance guys are dying, but you know, I'm going to, whereas with Jimmy, you know, you kind of grow to care about him a little bit. And all he does is slip on some blood and hit his head. You're like, oh shit. Oh no, what's going to happen next? Because you grew to care about who he was, you know, as opposed to, you know, they didn't, obviously, again, it's 1981. And obviously it was a bit different. You wouldn't expect that kind of violence, but I'm watching part 2. I'm like, and they're Hicks. And then you get the guys in the truck with the girl, with the dog in the back, and they're driving along. And they see Michael Myers, and who's this fucking guy out here? I'm like, what the fuck? Like, where are we? You know, like everybody's like, and I'm thinking, Rob, why is it that I don't care about? It's not that those people don't exist. They do. They absolutely do. But I don't feel like you're doing anything inventive. I feel like you're just doing what you do.
I will say this, you know, as far as the landscape of where he set Halloween 2 in, if we are to believe that, you know, in Illinois has it, you know, they have farming, they're a Midwest town. If they have that type of community, the landscape is pretty accurate. And I live in the South. I live in that type of area.
Sure.
These types of people literally every day. And that is pretty accurate to what you're going to get in a farming community. You are get these types of people.
But are you going to get that in Illinois?
That's the question. I've never been
I'm not saying, listen, I live in Toronto, Ontario. You go out into the, you know, into the rural Ontario, you know, and it is, you know, everybody's got, you know what I'm saying, right? But but when you watch Rob Zombie's films, you don't feel like you're in a little Midwestern town, you know, by the people. You feel like you're in some hick shtick Southern town. That was a point I was making. Sorry to interrupt you there, but
well, no, that's what I was saying. Like, you know, as far as with his Halloween 2, he was pretty accurate as far as the landscape. How I've always envisioned
if the movie takes place in the South.
Or, well, what I meant by that is, like, with Haddonfield alone, if Haddonfield is supposed to be in a farm town, most farm towns are going to be like that type of setting that he showed in that film. You're going to have a lot of country, a lot of land. You're going to have that small downtown area, which by the way, that small downtown area was filmed in Covington, Georgia, not too far from me, which also that small downtown area is the sheriff's station for Friday the 13th, Part 6. Exactly. In fact, for those who want to know specifics, when you see Scout walking up the street at the beginning of Rob Zombie's film, you see the clock behind her. To the left is the building where they shot the exterior and interior shots of the police station for Friday 6. It's a little.
There you go.
Fun fact.
A little bit of anecdotal trivia there for you folks.
Yeah.
Well, right. I mean, and I understand that. Like I said, the farming rural communities up here, same thing.
Yeah, it's very small community.
But there's nothing. The point I'm making is that I don't. It doesn't blend in that this is part of the story. It's just, this is Rob Zombie. This is just what he does. Everybody in Rob Zombie's world is a fucking trash. That's what it is. So it's hard for me to get into the characters because the characters are not developed. I don't care about them dying. Somebody in the chat here, you know, just said that the ambulance scene was their favorite scene. You know, it was really cool. Yeah, it was really cool. But who cares? Right? I mean, it's just like you know, there's a lot of cool shit. But at the end of the day, I just feel like I'm watching Rob Zombie do his thing. And maybe that's what you want. And maybe that's what you love.
Devil's Reject in this same world.
100, you could absolutely you could. Absolutely
you
could.
Take it off this.
Yes, you could. Universe. And that was the point I was making, was if you change Michael Myers' name to Brutus Johnson, but keep everything the same, you know, you might go, oh, this isn't happen. This is just a typical sort of zombie film, and I just had trouble. My hat goes off to him attempting to add a cerebral angle to it, to try and add some maturity to the film, you know, and ask the question, nature versus nurture. There's also I wrote it down here, when Danielle Harris was
Oh,
Or no,
by
it
the
wasn't.
way, guys, I'm only on this with Dave once a week, but you guys are here more frequently with him on his other videos. You need to start hounding Dave now and have him make a fan film of Michael Myers, the Brutus Johnson version. So get on it,
Brutus.
guys. We want to
Just
see
call it.
that. We
I'll
want to
just
see
call.
Brutus Johnson, Dave, Michael Myers.
We'll just call it Brutus. Yeah, like, I mean, he tried to implement some symbolism with the white horse on the wall behind Margot Kidder, of course, when Scout is looking into the mirror.
Sure.
Under the mirror, we have things like a message that says, wake the fuck up.
Right.
We also have a message that says, I love happy endings, and that is subliminal messaging. That's wake the fuck up. I mean, that's sort of foreshadowing. That's I like things like that, and I notice things, and my hat goes off to him for attempting to do that kind of stuff. It's just I'm not. I don't. The
other thing, I love me some Danielle Harris. She wasn't needed in the second film. There really was no need for her. I mean, she was great in the little scenes that she had. I mean, I'm cool with the fact that her physical death scene was not shown. You heard it.
Yes, that's one of the things that I wrote down, that I said that was actually quite nice.
Effective. That was very effective.
Yep.
And even when you hear her screaming, I thought her delivery on that was like, damn, that's kind of hitting you in the gut. Because she's a fan favorite, actress from the first 4 and 5. But I love her.
This is essentially what it boils down for me, is because of the kind of filmmaker Rob Zombie is. Okay. What you have watched essentially is what Rob Zombie did was, like it or hate it, love it or hate it, whatever the case is, what he delivered to you with Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 and 2 is a very tragic story about a white trash family.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially what he gave to you. But the problem, like I said, I have with that is that that's what he does all the time. He gives you a story that's about white trash. Somewhere in there's going to be some white trash. And that's why I'm just like, I wanted to see something. I wanted to have him. It's not, I want him challenged a bit more. He seems stuck in a specific sort of style. And maybe that's why people like him. They gravitate towards that. House of a Thousand Corpses, The Devil's Rejects, The Devil's Rejects sequel that's coming, 31. That's what he does. Unfortunately, because of the source material and, that we already have, that's not where it's not like he's remaking the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was more in line with that style.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
He's taking something and he's flipping it over and saying, oh, imagine if it was this. And unfortunately, I'm one of those people that look at that and go, yeah, like if I was Malak Akkad and he came into my room and said, okay, here's what I'm thinking. Imagine Michael Myers comes from a white trash fucking family where the stepdad is not really his dad. His mom is a fucking stripper. I'll get my wife to do it, by the way. She loves that kind of thing. We're I'm a fucking cuck. Anyway, so, and we get there.
Hold on. Wait, hold on. I got to say this, okay? Because I know a lot of people get on him for Sherry Moonbeam and all his shits. If I end up marrying a really hot girl, I believe me, she's going to be featured a lot in my photos.
But it comes, but that's fine. But it comes down to, is she the right person for the job? Is what it comes down to. And in this movie, sure, she's interchangeable. She's expendable. Everybody was expendable. I didn't feel anything. And when I want to watch a Halloween movie, like you said at the very top of the stream, I didn't feel any suspense. I didn't feel any horror. What I felt was sadness. I'm watching a horror movie that is gratuitous and loud, right? So when it's and I'm watching this, I'm going, but that's not scary.
Right.
And that's not, and I'm not saying you had to make a carbon copy of the original Halloween, but that's not scary to me. And so I was just watching a loud white trash Rob Zombie version of Halloween. And there was some Halloween elements thrown in, which made me go, oh, that's kind of, like I was like, well, that's a cool shot. That's a nice moment. I like what he did there. I like the tracking shot with Laurie running down the street and Michael, but it's always interrupted by something. That's what I always find, is that just when I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool, it's interrupted by something where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm watching a Rob Zombie film. You know, and it's like a car in the garage. It never gets out of the, and it never gets out of the garage. And with Halloween 2, of course, he was given free reign, and it's a very sad sort of, you know, and of course that's his intention. That no, I wanted to make this whole, you know, this tragic. Well, that's great, but that's not Halloween. Then why don't you just go off and make that story? Like, there's nothing proprietary about this that has to be Michael Myers. You're coming from 20 years, 25 years, nearly 30 years of deep-rooted mythology of what Michael Myers is. You flip it on its head. Like if I was Malik, I just would have said, no, let's not. Why don't you? That's a great idea. A kid that comes from a tragic background, you know, he's got all this stuff, and you know, you can do your fucking zombie shit that you do with the white trash skull fucking thing, right. That's what I'm saying. And then just make it a different horror movie because there's nothing in those two movies that says you can take the Halloween shit out of the 2007 movie and there's none of it in the, you know, the sequel, and just have it as just this 2-part thing about this tragic story about this southern town in Mississippi where fucking this kid goes off the fucking rocker. Like that
you literally changed the Michael character into some other person. Now all of a sudden you may have actually 2 decent horror films.
Right. Well, yeah, in that, because then I can look at it for what it was. Like, I actually quite enjoyed the first Devil's Rejects because I know what I'm getting myself into. I know I'm watching a Rob Zombie movie, but there's no history. It's not like there's a series of Devil's Rejects films that were psychological thrillers, right? And that were really deeply seated in the cerebral sort of angles and it's, you know, the mood and the, you know, and the No. There was none of that. So I'm seeing that this is the story. And if you lay this out first, this is new, this is fresh. I might have been able to get on board with it. But when you tell me, oh, okay, that beloved character that you know, and I'm doing a remake of the original film that was deeply rooted in the theater of the mind and you think you see, what you think, the mood, the atmosphere, all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to bring it into the 21st century, and I'm going to make it a white trash trailer park film. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, whoa, hey, it's too, the contrast is too heavy for me.
Put a chainsaw in Michael's hand, and literally you could have had a great Texas Chainsaw movie.
Just call it, that's what I'm talking about. You just call the guy Brutus. Brutus is a great name for a big guy, right? Or maybe that becomes his nickname. I mean, Brutus might have been a little harsh to name a kid that, but maybe that becomes his name, or maybe it's his middle name, or maybe he gets the name at school or something, right? And we see people picking on him like we did in the first Rob Zombie Halloween. And you know, when I watched, that's what stood out to me was this. Rob's heart was not in this. No. Rob didn't want to make a Halloween movie. You know, I think it just, you know, and people can say, and to those who are watching that love it, that love them, all the power to you. But for somebody like me, it's because of where you're coming from. I can't get on board with this because there's nothing particularly scary about either of these movies at all. I just feel like I'm watching a Rob Zombie horror movie that's loud, gratuitous. The language is over the top, and I'll get you, fuck. I'll come over there and stall, fuck you, bitch. Hey, how you doing, Johnny? What do you do? What the hell's the dad's name again? Ronnie. Yeah, Ronnie, what are you doing? Oh, shut up, bitch. I'll fucking slap that motherfucker. I'm just like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. And it's just hard for me to get behind that because there's nothing proprietary about it that says this is Halloween. And so
that's why and even people in the chat room are agreeing with this. I highly doubt Rob Zombie will ever watch this video. But if I could sit down with him and say, bro, you need to go to a studio and say, let me do Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Don't hold me back. Let me do my thing. Arguably, and I love Hooper's original that Dave and I were kind of talking about it before we went live here.
Yeah.
And I like the Jessica Biel remake, but potentially shot in Rob Zombie style, we could get maybe one of the best Texas Chainsaw Massacre films ever.
We absolutely could. My only advice to Rob Zombie would be is that don't make, if you were hypothetically, if you were going to remake the original,
and you were, guys, there's no facts on it. We're just,
no. There's no, we're just pure speculation. But if he was going to remake the, because that's his style of horror, the hammer, the old Italian, you know, the what is it called? It's the, you know, the sensational, you know. But if he was going to remake Texas, my only advice to him would be is that don't, you know, if you're going to have those kids in the you know, the van, and you're going to set it in, you know, the 70s or whatever, don't make the kids trash, you know, because you're going to need the contrast within the movie.
Right.
And you're going to have the hillbilly fucking hicks at the Hewitt house, or the, you know, whatever house, you know, whatever name you want to use. They're the trash. So you need our Texas kids, or whatever they are. They can be from Texas. They can have a little bit of an accent or something, or you know, like what you did in the 2003 remake. But don't have them going, well, that's just Johnny, what? Because then it's just, I'm not getting any. You need that contrast. That we need to feel vulnerable. They're going into territory that they're not used to, right? They're going into territory that is foreign to them. Right, which is what was really cool about the 2003 remake, which is arguably one of the better horror remakes, is because even though, you know, Jessica Biel showing a little skin, and you get the idea that maybe they're from maybe that area, maybe, or whatever, they're not trash.
No, and it really is an all-around good movie.
Right, and you feel, so now you feel like they're out of their element. Right, when they start getting into this environment, they feel like you're out of your element. So that would be my only sort of advice would be that
the whole white trash thing, bro, you got it. This, whether you want to do the Sawyer family or the Hewitt family, you pick.
That's exactly
right there you go.
Right, because that's what it's about. But when you're coming into Halloween and you're saying, I'm going to make Halloween white trash, it's the same thing as saying, I'm going to make an Elm Street remake, and Nancy's going to come from a white trash family. I mean, imagine that just for a second. Imagine the uproar if I went out and made an official Elm Street remake, and Nancy came from a fucking white trash family.
You would ruin her character.
Oh my, it would absolutely, it would. And it's not that you can't do that, but because of the history for which you're coming from, you can't just flip it that far. And I know that he was trying to show that, you know, he's coming for that. This is the reason why he's so fucked up. But then you sort of almost contradict yourself in your next movie by saying that it might have been nature anyway.
Yep.
So it wasn't really necessarily a product of Michael's environment, because it might have been in him the whole time anyway, because of what's going on. Because that's what you allude to with Laurie when you find out that, you know, she does the smile at the end and she begins to. I interpret it anyway as it took that horrific event to bring it out of her, to bring the potential there out of her, because she starts seeing shit that's not actually there. When Loomis at the end of part 2 says, you know, Laurie, what are you doing? There's nobody there, Laurie. There's nobody there. And they show her kind of on the ground. That's reality. That's reality. There really isn't anybody there. But now you're realizing that, oh my God, she potentially possesses this psychosis. So now it's kind of like,
let alone that. And I was just realizing, I wanted to say this to you. I did not understand why he wanted to give us the, with Michael Myers and Tyler Mane, the Lou Ferrigno Incredible Hulk grunts throughout this film. For
I
anybody
noticed that
who's seen the 70s show Incredible Hulk with Lou Ferrigno as the Hulk, well, he grunts a lot throughout, you know, in that series. But if you listen to Tyler Mane, especially in the second film, he's grunting a lot. I'm like, what's up with this fucking grunting shit? I don't get it.
Well, I just think it's another. It's just it's a creative directing choice that Zombie did. That just shows aggression, obviously, right? But of course, it's a very different. This is a very different take on Michael Myers, and it's not one that I particularly enjoy. And like I said at the top, not to beat a dead horse, but it's just Rob Zombie. I don't see a filmmaker approaching this saying, I'm going to make a white trash movie, No, just that's what Rob Zombie does. He just makes white trash movies. And you almost can't help but think that, are you just white trash, Rob? I mean, I know your appearance doesn't necessarily do us any favors, but I'd like, I know he didn't, I looked to where he grew up. He seemed, his parents were part of a carnival, so he had that kind of environment, but there's nothing really that says that he was real heck white trash, but definitely there's got to be something. Rob Zombie fans in the chat room certainly will be able to speak on him more than I can. I don't know a lot about his backstory, but that's where it becomes sort of like you lose me. I just don't feel like I'm watching something, risky. I just feel like I'm just watching what you do. You turn everything into white trash. You can fucking turn Star Wars into white trash. If he was hired to make a Star Wars movie, he'd go, why don't we make it white trash? And it's like, Rob, like, can you fucking step out of your comfort zone a little bit, Rob? And start, why don't you make a romantic comedy? And at the very end of the movie, when I see directed by Rob Zombie, mind blowing or something, because I think he's talented. I think he is, but I think he's stuck in his, and don't get me wrong, do what you do it well. I agree with that 100%. But I don't know. Halloween is one of those things that, because we're coming from a set mythology and a set in tone and style, because remember, he's not remaking any of the other films. He was remaking the original film. It just felt a little over the top.
Michael Anderson said it best, because that's exactly what I thought. To me, I felt like in part 2, Michael sounds like he's constipated. And Michael Anderson says, Tyler Maines, Michael Myers made those sounds because he ate bad Mexican. It was on search for a restroom. But it's true. He does sound like he's got to let a big load out, and he's letting out his frustration on people.
That's very true. That's very true. I will say this though, when I was watching Zombies Halloween the other day, the first one, certainly the cinematography is very good, and the color temperature of the night shots is very good. I felt that's a difference. Like when you watch the color temperature at night in the 2018 remake, a lot of people, when I was talking about blue light, there were a lot of people that, of course, because the world lacks nuance nowadays, and the world of fandom just completely lacks nuance, misinterpreted that as me saying that I think that, you should just drench everything in blue light. And that's not what I was saying at all. What I was saying is that when you utilize the correct color temperature for night shots, you can create a very sort of cold, claustrophobic, sort of isolated sort of feel. Where if you sort of use more warmer temperatures, it doesn't really have that effect. Of course, it all depends on the style and what you're shooting and what you're going for. The Halloween 2018 film had a lot of warmer color tones as opposed to cooler tones. And when you watch Rob Zombie's Halloween, and even Halloween 2, the color temperature for which the night shots are lit, and whatever they did in post as well, was good. It felt cold. It felt claustrophobic. You could really feel sort of that chilliness on a Halloween night. And I stand to be corrected. Correct me if I'm wrong, but was not Halloween 2 shot on 16?
I think so.
I think Halloween 2, somebody in the chat room, I think Halloween 2 might have been shot on 16 millimeter. I could be wrong on that. But somebody let me know.
One film?
Halloween 2. I don't know if the first one was. The first one might have been shot on 35, but I think it might have been shot on 16. It was, Dave. Yes. Okay. Well, shooting on 16 was a smart choice, because you added a different layer of grit, and you added a different layer. You allow yourself to have a different layer of sort of some texture and some mood. And I've shot on 16 when I was in.
It's one of my favorite formats to film on for video.
Yeah. I haven't shot on 35, but I haven't shot on 16. And
I like 16, and I love 78. I love 78 is just fucking beautiful.
That's a whole
Honestly, 78, if I could get every horror film ever on a 78 millimeter, I'd fucking love that.
Yeah. And so that adds a different sort of texture to it. And that's not to say that the, a 2018 film looked awful. It didn't look awful. You've heard me say 1,000 times, I think the 2018 film it's a fine little modern horror movie, but I don't think it's a very good Halloween movie, especially when you're telling me it's a sequel to the original. Well, hey, hang on a minute here. But having said that, you got to give credit where credit is due. And I've said this before in the past, even when rewatching the two zombie films, that the cinematography is okay. It's a strong point in zombies movies. And there are some things to like. I mean, you have to give credit where credit is due. And I always call them fucking shit shows, because at the end of the day, that's what they are to me, because I don't care if I ever watch, I will never, like, I watched them once this past week. It'll probably be another 20 years until I watch them again. There's nothing there that I don't feel like I need to relive that story again, because the story is not the strong point. The strong point in Rob Zombie's Halloween 1 and 2 is the presentation, is the sensational, all this like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And that's cool. But that's generally not why we relive stories. We relive stories because we're emotionally attached to or we rewatch films, because we're, emotionally attached to the characters. We want to live vicariously through these characters again. These movies are not, there's not a lot of payoff there, especially with the end of Halloween 2. It ends on a somber note. It ends on a sad note. It's just not a story that I feel like revisiting again and again. There's nothing there that doesn't really get me going. But again, I'm a bit biased, because I have to, I got to say that, because I'm somebody, as the chat room knows, that thrives and loves, subtle mood and atmosphere and more of the theater of the mind. Now, when I say theater of the mind, I don't mean everything's got to be suggested. But what I mean is that less is often more when you're creating the creep factor or trying to scare somebody or really get inside their heads. Zombies films are fun to watch the gratuitous violence. It's like, whoa, this is intense. But there's nothing particularly overtly scary about it. It's well shot. The camera's going like this, quick cuts, handheld cams, up close, quick cuts back and forth. But that's all in the editing room. That's all in the editing room. So, I don't know. That's what it comes down to for me, is I tip my hat for doing what he did, but I question Malik Akkad for just like, why did you just give him the free reins? I mean, well, I think it's because, look, the original Rob Zombie's Halloween at the box office worldwide made $80 million. Okay. To be exact, $80,253,908, according to Box Office Mojo. Its opening weekend was $26 million. That's pretty good. 2007. That's pretty good. Made $58 million domestic. Remember, again, domestic is the US and Canada. So whenever you hear somebody talk about domestic, that includes us up here too. So, but it does not include Mexico. Made $80 million bucks. 26 million opening weekend. When you go to Halloween 2, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, it made a total domestic now $33 million. So nearly $50 million less domestic than Halloween, the first one. And it only made 39 million worldwide. So, I'm sorry. I'm talking about, it made 10, 20, my apologies, about $25 million less domestically, and about 10, 20, 30, nearly 50 million less altogether. And it made 16 million opening weekend. So it was a drop. So Rob Zombie's Halloween from 2007, although it did well, this is a perfect example of people went out to see it because it was, oh my God, it was a reimagining, what's going to happen. But nobody cared to see a follow-up. Nobody liked it enough to go to the theater to see a follow-up, because you would think that if this movie was really good, people would be jumping at the bit to go see the sequel, and nobody did. It made $6 million foreign, the sequel, and the original made 21. I mean, so even overseas and in Europe and Australia, nobody give a fuck about, part 2. So, I don't know. I just question why Malik Akkad suddenly said, okay, just do whatever. Well, I do know why, because the first one was a huge success, relatively speaking. But that's primarily because of, everybody wanted to see this new take, but also because of the Halloween nostalgia that was in there. So that's why people tend to like the first one over the second one, because it's more Halloween than the second one, right? The first one is more, even though the first one's fucked up, it's more Halloween than the second one. And that's why you like it better.
Oh yeah, I can smoke all the weed in the world and I wouldn't understand what the hell he was doing in Halloween too.
Right. Yeah.
Really, I wouldn't know what the hell he was.
Well, I understand. I get it. I know what he was going for. Like I like
deeper than it really. It's a Halloween film, man. You can make it with fucking 2 packs of gum and a fucking case of beer. You know, you don't have to put that. But like, this is the problem when you start putting these deep mythology thoughts into characters. It devalue. Like that's why Carpenter didn't do that in the original film.
Yeah, well, that's right. It demystifies. Right. It demystifies
the you know, what makes that character so interesting.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh, I've said this ad nauseum on this channel. You've heard me say this for like 3 years. I've said this exact thing. The original Halloween, the original. I've said this verbatim. These words. I've said the original Halloween is like a 90-minute Hitchcockian Twilight Zone ghost story. That's essentially what it is. And it's got that spooky sort of, well, you know, I mean, you've heard me say it. I don't need to say it again. Rob Zombie's Halloween is the polar opposite of that. It demystifies who Michael is, where he comes from, you know, what's going on. One of the reasons why Halloween, and we've talked about this, the original was so scary back in its day. Okay, it's a little dated now, but why people really like it, because you can see past the datedness of the original film and look at what's still so rich and good about it. Is that end shot, and we've talked about this, that end shot of the opening sequence when, you know, the father says Michael, takes off the clown mask, and it's the 2 parents there. That's a tableau shot of just the
learned something about that scene that I had no idea. Honest to God, for this is bad. I never knew. Well, not bad. I just never knew it. I didn't realize the clown mask was a full face mask. I always thought it was a partial mask.
Oh yeah, no. I had no clue. It comes down over here. Yeah.
Similar to like Daniel Harris's mask.
Oh yeah. No, it comes down over here.
I just learned that.
Oh, well, there you go. See, when you watch things, you knew. That's exactly it. But this was more of a like when that mask is removed, and I talked about this with Dean Cundy. I mean, I confirmed with, like, I did a video on this before I met him because I knew what it was. That's a cinematic tableau. That's a snapshot, right? Because that's the big, reveal. Oh, Michael's a 6-year-old boy. Oh shit! Like that's holy shit. And they're panning upwards, and that's a still frame. It's a snapshot. But what that is revealing is that it's something, we've talked about this, it's something so horrific, right? As a 6-year-old boy murdering his older sister with a large fucking butcher knife on Halloween night against the backdrop of a sweet, innocent, normal town. This isn't Hickville. This isn't full of trailer trash. This is just your regular Midwestern little small town that you might drive through on your way to Chicago. I mean, maybe it's got 10,000 people, if that, right? Just a sweet little town. This is what this is. And something so horrific happens against the backdrop. And that's that shot. Michael there, 6-year-old boy, holding the knife, his 2 parents dressed really well, presumably coming back from some party or, wherever they're coming from. This nice little wartime home behind him, and the dead sister upstairs with this bloody, knife like the size of this little boy. It's creepy. It's like when you learn on the news, that the neighbor down the street just murdered his whole fucking family. And you're like, fuck, I just talked to Bob last night. He seemed like a nice guy. It's creepy. It's eerie, right? It's that contrast. When you have something like Rob Zombie's Halloween, it's like, no wonder he's fucked up. Right. Look where he comes from. There's nothing scary about that. There's nothing mystifying about that. There's no mystique about that. There's no unknown factor about that. There's no why. Why is he like this? He came from a good home. His parents were good. As far as we know, he went to a good school. He was getting good grades. What the fuck don't we know? Well, that is scary as shit.
Yeah, and when you look at some of the iconic horror films, like Nightmare and Halloween and even Black Christmas, these are movies that are set in places that are supposed to be normal. This shit's not supposed to happen there. And you look at Black Christmas, it's set in a sorority house. Everything's supposed to be fine. You look at Elm Street, Elm Street's the same thing. It's, your typical Americana town, nice houses and shit like that. And next thing you know, shit just gets spun upside down. The original Halloween, the exact same thing. It's set in this, what seems to be a nice community, what the fuck just happened here? How did this happen to us in our town? Because this shit's not supposed to happen here. That kind of stuff, that's what makes that type of scare, to me anyways, personally, I enjoy more than the, look, I love Devil's Rejects for what it is, because that's the type of movie Devil's Rejects needs to be, even The House of a Thousand Corpses. But when you start doing it to Halloween and you start bringing that same exact element into, what you did there with Devil's Rejects and The House of a Thousand Corpses into the Halloween films, now it's like, okay, well, this isn't really scary. It's just a brutal, that's murderer basically doing what we saw throughout the whole Friday the 13th series.
That's just it. And you have to understand that that's why when you watch something like Rob Zombie's film, it's if you want to watch on its own merits, okay, fine, but you're removing what made Halloween Halloween. You're removing essentially the fundamental core of what made the original Halloween so great. The one ingredient, you're removing the spice from the soup. You can make that soup if you want, and you can call it tomato soup or Italian wedding or whatever the fuck, knock yourself out. But if you remove the one thing that makes it Italian wedding, or if you remove the tomato from the tomato soup, it's no longer tomato soup. And this is, you can do that if you want. You can have it your own brand and your own style, and maybe you add a little bit of a drop of tomato flavoring. Maybe that's essentially what Rob Zombie's Halloween is it's tomato soup without the tomato, but a little bit of tomato flavoring. Okay, fine. And we can get our, our kicks, and we can say, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. But at the end of the day, the reason why we love that original film so much, and like I said, it's not without its flaws, folks. It's not, I'm not blind. There's some things that are dated now, but it's that classic old Hitchcockian ghost story. It's like a 90-minute Twilight Zone episode, and the things that are great about that movie cease to essentially they cease to exist in Rob Zombie's film. So it doesn't feel like you're watching a Halloween movie. The only time it feels like Halloween is when Laurie looks out the window and sees Michael Myers. Oh, Halloween. Well, of course it feels like Halloween. That's them tipping their hat, or you hear bum, 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 bum. Oh, kind of feels like Halloween a little bit. Oh, that's kind of cool. Oh yeah, that's because that's Tyler Bates' version of the shape stocks, essentially, right? Oh, okay, cool, great. But then you start to get into it's Rob Zombie.
McRae would say
Rob Zombie's Halloween is tomato soup without the tomato, but with tomato flavoring. And it's like, okay, well, it's kind of tomato soup. No, but that's what. And then, so there's no real, again, you give credit where credit is due. And, you tip there are certain qualities about both movies, and I just recently watched them, that are well done, that are good. And of course, you can talk about, you can talk about the later sequels as well. You can talk about Halloween H20, or you can talk about Halloween Resurrection. That doesn't feel like a fucking Halloween movie either. A lot of the later sequels.
Oh, come on now, Busta Rhymes, man, he's the greatest person ever to be featured in a Halloween movie.
That's true. Well, I often say that Halloween H20 is like Michael Myers walked onto the set of Dawson's Creek. That's essentially what it was. It's a very classic late 90s horror movie, and classic in the sense of it has a very specific identity in terms of its texture and style. Yeah. But Resurrection is a terrible film because it again, it doesn't have anything that's there. I will say this: I like the cinematography in Rob Zombie's Halloween and Halloween 2 better than I like.
Well, he paused again, folks. Am I alive? Am I the only one here? Am I carrying this show? If that's the case, this thing's going to sink like the fucking Titanic.
No, I think I'm there. Am I there? I'm back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Hopefully I didn't pause like that. But yeah, so it's anyway, but that's sort of how I feel about it is that you've removed that fundamental ingredient that made the first. Like, I have no issues if somebody wants to do a remake to Resurrection or do a sequel to Resurrection, and that sequel to Resurrection doesn't have anything from the original Halloween, I don't fucking care. You want to know why I don't fucking care? Number one, I don't fucking care about Resurrection. So if you're going to make a sequel to it, I don't really care. But if the sequel is in line with what we got in Resurrection, well, that makes sense to me.
Yep.
Well, yes, because it would be weird to go back to the original. But when you're making a remake of the original, which is what the 2007 film was, and you're doing a sequel, 2018, to the original, and the original ceases to exist anywhere in there, I just don't. I don't know. Mind boggles me.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, as a creator yourself, you're a YouTube creator. I'm a photographer, Instagram creator, and we put our hearts and soul into all of whatever it is that we do. You know, you put everything into your videos. I put everything into my photos, whether I'm recreating a Myers shot or a Scream shot or a Freddy shot, whatever I'm doing on there. The intention is never to create something bad. And I don't always like to take that approach and dog on another creators. And ultimately, that's what Rob Zombie is. He's a creator. Yep. Unfortunately, if I were sitting down with him face to face, I would say, bro, you kind of made some decisions here that, like, why did you have to go that road? You know what I mean? Like we were talking about earlier in the stream here with his first 2007 Halloween. If he had just dialed back the white trash a little bit, I don't mind the aggressive kill because it's set for the time. You know what I mean? Like if he were to approach it from the 78 approach, the way Carpenter and Cundy did it with the stylization of the filming and pretty much hiding, you know, and masking the blood and whatnot, that wouldn't have worked in 2007 with the film going audience. So you're going to need to up it a little bit. And I don't mind his brutality and the way he killed in the follow-up sequel. The grunting you could have done without. So there are a lot of good things. I don't want to say the word a lot. There are some good things to take away from both of these movies. You know, because like I said, it's so easy that you can sit there and rag on something because it's a beloved franchise. You know, this fan base is very protective. Well, every fan base is protective of their IP and what they're fans of. That's why we're fans of this shit. But, you know, like I said, I loved Scout's portrayal of Laurie Strode. She didn't make me feel like she was trying to copy Jamie Lee Curtis. Same thing with Malcolm McDowell. He didn't make me feel like he was copying Donald Pleasance, you know, like where Brandon Roth looks like he's trying to copy Christopher Reeve in Superman Returns, which is like, no, Christopher Reeve is Christopher Reeve. I don't like it when an actor, you know, tries too hard, especially when they're becoming a part of a franchise, that they're trying to mimic and imitate someone, because that, to me, you're going to check out. So that's what I do like about Rob Zombie's films, is that the comparison is more comparing it as far as the filmmaking goes, but as far as the actors, they all pretty much stand alone. You know, even Danielle Harris's performances as Annie. I don't know the chick's name who played Linda in Rob Zombie's Halloween. I know PJ Souls did it in the first film. So even the girls didn't make me feel like they were ripping off the girls from the original film. And that's what I like about it. Even with all the elements of, like you just said, the winks and the nods and, you know, Laurie looking out the window and then the kids walking home and you see Michael standing there staring at them and, you know, Danielle is having that, you know, dialogue and whatnot before her pops shows up. And then other little Easter eggs throughout the film. It still kind of stood on it, not kind of, it did stand on its own as its own movie. And I just wish that he had taken a beat, taken a breath and said, okay, how am I going to approach this second film? And to me, I just feel like he approached it where I'm going to put everything into that hospital scene. And then the rest of it is just pretty much going to fall apart and become one, as Dave would say, Dave, you need to get shirts have made up and start selling this shit show.
Well, I have shirts on my merch store, link in the description, where it says this or that movie was a fucking shit show. So they're there. Okay, I agree with what you've said, and I guess again, not to beat a dead horse, but my problem it's not my problem isn't the kills or the I understand that there are certain things that you will have to take liberties on to bring into the 21st century, and that the natural violence and order was okay, fine. I get that, but you're removing for me, I'm talking about me. You're removing the fundamental ingredient of why Halloween works so well. Listen, there was a reason why they continued to make sequels, whether you like it or not, in that franchise, and there was a reason why Rob Zombie never got to make another one, was because he went over here like this. Regardless of whether you like it or not, there's no mystery to it, you know. And a big part of why Michael works so well is because of that X factor, that mystery. and I have no problem with Rob Zombie's Halloween if they were its own thing. You know, if it wasn't a Halloween movie, it was just, like I said, Brutus Johnson, you know, and it's just this guy, and he comes home and he comes from this really fucked up life, and he might be a really cool character now, you know, and maybe he looks like a bum the whole time. He's got the long beard and he's got the half a mask of something that isn't a Myers mask, or I don't know. I just think that when you tell me, because it's such a 180, when, you know, you tell, because remember in 2007, that might've been the beginning of a new series.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That might've been the beginning of Halloween as we know it. Now it didn't, it stopped at 2, but for all we knew back in 07 and 09, that could have been 1, 2, and we could be up to 4, 5, 6 by now. And when I watched that first Halloween in 07, I was like, this is not where I want to, I don't like this version of Halloween. I like that, and I like that, and that was cool, but I'm not scared in your movies. I just find it a sad story about a trailer park family.
But it was good enough, the first one, the 07 one, it was good enough to go, okay, where can we take this? And then when you get to 2 and you're like, oh, really, this is where we're going to take it to?
Well, it was
lost.
Yeah, it made money. It made $80 million worldwide, but that's not necessarily. It also has, you know, 46% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I mean, and certainly it has its following. I know that there are a lot of Rob Zombie Halloween fans, and I understand that. But in the bigger picture, most people are, you know, either lukewarm to it, don't really care about it, really hate it, and it made $80 million because Halloween Resurrection was garbage. It was like the franchise was dead. And then you got Rob Zombie is like, oh, and the trailers were pretty cool. This is different. Wow. You know, what's this going to be like? It looks intense. So a lot of people went to see it. But then the follow-up sequel made $50 million less. Yep. $50 million less. Where were all the people that went to see it before?
Right.
So they didn't go back to see the sequel. You know, and again, you don't know what a movie is like until you go see it.
Yep.
You know, and nobody went to see the sequel, you know, or got bad word of mouth. And so it's the kind of thing
where we walked out on it like I did.
Or people walked out on it. But then you can't go back to the box office and get your money back. So the money that you paid to go see it, they still have that. So even if the same amount of people went to see it, but just walked out, the total should be up there, and it's not. It made substantially, like, it's relative, right? Like, it, you know, $33 million worldwide as opposed to $80 million worldwide is like the equivalent. I'm not very good at math, but it would be like the equivalent of a big blockbuster making 200 million the first time and then makes, like, you know, 88 million the second time or something. I don't know what the margins are there, but, you know, you look at the percentage and it's like, it's significantly less, you know, or 100 million or like whatever it is. Yeah, like it's over half. It made half worldwide less, half, 50% less. That's a terrible drop, right?
Drop. Very,
you
big.
know, so
a very big drop in a franchise that is well established with a large fan base. I mean,
right?
We're not on the, you know, comic book Avengers fan base, but
right.
We're a large fan base, and we will support Halloween movies.
And it just started. It just began in 2007. Yep. You release it, right? It just started. And then, and it only comes out 2 years later. So the 2007 film should still be relatively in the pop culture consciousness. And then the sequel makes $50 million less, over 50% less. It's like, where were all the people that went to see? So you can't say that yes, it was financially successful, the first one, but there were a lot of people like myself that went to see that first one and were like, oh, I don't know if this was like, imagine this, you know? And it's like, oh no, like if that was the writer room, I just would have said, no, I don't want to do that, Rob. I don't want to, you know, and maybe the compromise was, okay, you can do that. But Malick said, you got to throw in some Halloween things.
Oh, you know, I agree with you on that one, because Rob Zombie did an interview here a few years ago on Loudwire, and he openly admitted that he told Tyler he can go ahead and keep the beard as is, because they were in the middle of working. They were going to work on a movie called Tyrannosaurus Rex. It was with Tyler Mane. He was going to be a boxer or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
The point of, it was to, for Tyler's character to grow this beard. So he basically, they did a reverse here with, like with Henry Cavill of growing the mustache and then doing horrible CGI. Rather than just having him, remove the beard, because they weren't going to do this film Tyrannosaurus Rex, which would have made, that would have been the smart thing to do. Rob just took the lazy approach and said, you know what, go ahead and keep the beard. Now, some have argued that, well, if Michael Myers, had escaped and was living as a hermit somewhere, technically he would have a long hair and long beard, because I don't think any of us can envision Michael going up to the barber shop and say, yeah, give me a little high.
Right.
Whatever. I don't think any of us can picture that. So I will say, yeah, maybe for accuracy, I will give him credit where credit is due. That's probably what Michael would look like in the sequel. But it just, I just don't think anybody was really feeling Hobo Michael Myers, and like, would it have been that bad to maybe kind of like do what I do or what you do, trim that beard up enough, to where it's, it's not this like total like hermit thing, to where like the mask is here and the beard is down here. All you had to do was basically paint his hair white and the beard white, and he's fucking Saint Nick.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And no, I get what you're saying. I think Malek Akkad probably said, okay, you can do this, but we got to have some Halloween things in there, some Easter eggs to tip our hat, so that, the see anything you like, the nailing, Bob on the wall, the, all the little things that are in Rob Zombie's Halloween. But I guarantee you, like I said earlier in the stream, Rob, that wouldn't have been Rob's idea. Rob would have, what you got in Halloween 2, 2009, Rob would have done a lot earlier if he had had the leeway to do it, but he doesn't own the IP, so they wouldn't allow him to do it. But because the original Halloween was so successful, that was probably Malek Akkad saying, okay, now you can do what you want. But what Malek Akkad missed was the movie Halloween from 2007 wasn't successful because of what Rob didn't do, or did do. It was a lot of it was hype. A lot of it was, it's Halloween. It's a new take. It's, let's go see it. Right. And because you can judge that by nobody went to see the sequel. Yep. So nobody really liked what Rob Zombie did. I mean, I know there are people that do, but we're talking generally, right? The masses, really, the general consensus is, right? I mean, really, at the end of the day, Rob Zombies, they have their fans, but at the end of the day, it's.
I said it, for those who just joined us, I said it at the beginning of the stream. I'm a huge fan of Rob Zombie's music, right? And going back to White Zombie days before he went off on his own.
Yeah.
No, I mean, seriously, I love White Zombie and Rob Zombie's music. I listen to it when I run every morning, when I'm working out, whatever, when I'm editing pictures and shit like that, or videos. I like his music, and I do like House of a Thousand Corpses, and I do like Devil's Rejects, but unfortunately, like I said, there are some good elements that I can talk about with his versions of Halloween 1 and 2. There's, like I said, there were some good elements of the second film, but he had so much potential. Like we said here, Dave said here a few moments ago, that this could have been in the middle of a run right now, starting with his first film, and we could be up to 4 or 5 right now. Who knows where this thing could have potentially went to, because it was there. You could see it in that first film, because like you said, there, beyond just the Easter eggs, when I've talked with people about this film, the first Halloween film, they genuinely like it. Like, I have a friend of mine, granted, I put her in the casual moviegoer. She's not the diehard fans like we are, that know every little nickel and dime to this franchise and can start quoting shit like fucking, what does the chick say to Wayne there in Halloween 4 when he approaches her in the convenience store? Fuck off, Wade, right? She's not that type of fan. She's the casual fan, and she likes Rob Zombie's Halloween, and I don't fault her for it. I don't hate on her for it, but she likes it better than the 1978 film, because she's that casual moviegoer. So there is a fan base out there for this. And like Dave was just starting to say, it's not wrong if you prefer the Rob Zombie version over the original version. You're totally right on that. Forgot where I was going with this. I lost my train because I was just rambling on, and then I saw a text come through and it distracted me here. But anyways, I I know we're at that point here with the Q&A. Do you want to start taking Q&As, or did you have anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of wrap up my thoughts here, saying that, you know, Rob Zombie has a specific style, and it's a style that I don't tend to like. And unfortunately, when it comes to Rob Zombie's Halloween, it's not a movie that I particularly like because of the contrast between the two movies. I think the ingredient that made the original Halloween so special was lost. And you don't have to keep, you can make a Halloween movie where you show blood. You can make a Halloween movie where you can have some violence. I'm not suggesting in the slightest that you have to make a boring, you know, old school movie where you don't show anything. That's not what I'm suggesting. You can amp it up a little bit to entertain more of the modern younger fans today.
Yeah.
But removing a special ingredient of what about Michael's character and changing the fundamental core of what his character was, because it's not like he just gave him a backstory.
Right.
He gave him motive. He gave him a reason of why he is the way he was. And that is there's a reason why Michael Myers is arguably more attractive than Jason and Freddy. We know, not that we don't love them, we do, but we know why Freddy is the way he is.
Yep.
We know why Jason is the way he is and doing what he's doing. We know why he's killing. We have absolutely unequivocally no idea why Michael was doing what in the first Halloween. And then they gave him motive in the second one to go after his Laurie, and then the family, then the Thorn cult and all that shit. But in the very first Halloween, which was supposed to be a one-off, there was no rhyme or reason for doing what he was doing. And that is, that's incredibly scary. You can take that fundamental core story element and introduce it in a modern film and make and still keep it really creepy and eerie, and make a movie that is just as impressive today with that core fundamental element. You don't have to remove it. Zombie removed it because it gave him an opportunity to expand and utilize white trash. I mean, I just don't see any other reason for it. That's the problem, is it just makes me feel like I'm watching a Rob Zombie movie. I'm not watching anything that there's anything proprietary about it. And with Halloween 2, I commend him for doing something that is, he attempted to have sort of more of a cerebral element to it, adding some, you know, the subconscious and dreams and symbolism. But I wish he would have done that, because I like that kind of shit. I wish he would have done that. I just wish, I think when I watch, this is what it comes down to. When I watch both Halloween films from Zombie, it makes me wish they weren't Halloween films, because there's some good elements to them.
Yes. That's what I was starting to say, and when I lost my train of thought.
And it makes me wish that these were completely separate, because because they're not Halloween films. Now, the first one feels a bit like Halloween because of those Halloween elements. The second one doesn't really feel like Halloween at all because those elements aren't there.
Yep. And you know, and that's what Dave's saying here, and he got me back on track here. I'm not bashing on Rob Zombie. Like I said, I love his music. I like, you know, a couple of his movies. I just wish he didn't approach it from the typical Rob Zombie style. I really wish he had kind of taken a beat and say, you know what, I've got something special here. Let me work it out. And like Dave and I were saying here, I think in theory, we could potentially have been in this really good run with a new Halloween series, potentially.
Well, if he had focused more on what he was doing in 2, you might get a completely different sort of thing, perhaps. You know what I mean? But it's and again, it's not about making a boring movie. It's about taking there are many movies that are released today that do very, very, very well, that have those elements, because they're classic storytelling elements of what Halloween utilized. It's not about blood, guts, and gore. It's not about gratuitous violence. There are ways you can show violence and show gore, but your story and your narrative and how you're utilizing your antagonist is smart and scary and wildly creepy. Those movies exist today. And you can do that. But for the most part, I don't like those movies. I don't like his first movie. I don't like his second movie, because for me, you're telling me this is a remake of Halloween, and I'm telling you, no, it's not. That's just what it comes down to for me.
Agreed. Yeah, man. Dave Johnson's asking about your new ink, man. Show it off.
Oh yeah, my new tattoo. I got that done today. That's why I have looks a little red. Yeah, the M. There's a couple of meanings to this. The M stands for McRae, obviously, which is my last name, and the 31 is a very symbolic number. Many people think, oh, it's because of Halloween, right? By default, I guess it just kind of lucked out that way. The number 31, there's a lot of symbolism to that when you go back to paganism and you go back even further, and there's a lot of, I like the shit that surrounds that number, and I've liked that number for years, even outside of Halloween. But of course, when you talk about Halloween and Samhain and paganism and you keep going back, there's a reason why for that too. So it just kind of worked out that way. But it also, M31 is the code for the galaxy Andromeda. And I'm a big fan of the galaxy Andromeda. And because it's the closest galaxy to us, it's only 2.4 million light years away, I think. And I've always been fascinated by the galaxy Andromeda. And I've had some crazy sort of ideas for movies that would be really cool, really mature, philosophical kind of movies about about Andromeda. So that's kind of cool. So that's what it is. I got it inked today.
Yeah, I dig it.
All right, we're going to go to the chat room now, ladies and gentlemen. This is your opportunity to ask us some questions. You can ask us some questions about Rob Zombie's films. Whatever you want to talk about.
Quick. Well, I mean, when we're talking about Halloween, the time's going to fly real fast.
The time flies by. It was good, though. It was good. We gave our thoughts on it. I wanted to keep this
shit bagged on it. And if by some miracle, Scout, if you do come across this video, I got to say this too. She has been very supportive on my Michael Myers pictures on Instagram. She comments on them. She loves them. And she's the only one from the whole Halloween family. None of the other people have commented, none of the other actors who have been a part of it, but she has. And not just one, she's done it on several of my Michael Myers pictures. And I appreciate that. That's kind of giving me the thumbs up from somebody who has worked on a couple films. So I hope, again, I don't think they're going to watch this, but if they do, I hope the interpretation is that we're not shitbagging on your film, because I've really made sure to point out that I really do like her performance as Laurie Strode. I thought that, again, she did not make me feel like I was watching Jamie Lee. She made that character herself. And as far as 2 goes, I don't even fault her for that, because ultimately she's doing her job as an actress that the director is giving her to do. And she's doing what the director tells her to do.
Oh yeah, the actors are never responsible for. I mean, no. It doesn't have anything to do. I don't like the movies. There are a few redeeming qualities in those movies, but I don't like them for the many reasons that I stated here. But it has nothing to do with Scout or anything like that. I mean, it has nothing to do with that at all. There's something else I was going to say. Maybe I'll think about it, or I'll think of it, but I can't remember now. Super chat from Jim D. Thank you, Jim. Says, do you like the Rob Zombie H1 mask?
I'm kind
of not particularly, because I don't think. No, I don't hate it, but I don't like it. I just think it's I don't know. It's neutral to me. I don't know. It's not a mask that I particularly fond. I think one of the reasons why people love the original Halloween mask is because the way it was utilized. When you look at the Halloween 1 mask in broad daylight, or just, if you were to see it all the time, it's not as impactful. It's not as impressive. But when you take that mask and you know how to light it, and you know how to utilize it in the right light and, in the right space, it can become really cool. I think if Rob Zombie had utilized more of the light and shadow and camera tricks like that with his mask, maybe people would be because now you have an image of that mask. Right. And you think about that mask in a way of how it was utilized in the movie. But we see it so often and so clearly that it just looks like a, mask you can get in a store, I guess. It's fine. It's not terrible. It's not the worst mask.
No, I agree.
Let's see here.
I got one.
Okay.
Quick one. Michael Anderson, Tony, serious question. I love these serious questions.
Yes, serious.
Serious and a little bit off topic. My hair is a little thin. Oh boy, I know where this is going. In the front, and thinking about shaving my head. Do you have to get a tan after you shave your head? Well, no. I live in the South, and I'm a photographer, and I do a lot of work in and outside, and I'm getting under the sun. But what I do, well, first of all, when I started to do this, especially on the last 2 shows, is I started going bald about a year ago, like up in the top here and definitely in the back. But if I were to let it grow in, it would just have that like massive, you would see that massive thinning. And everybody was just like, dude, just rock the baldness. Don't worry about it. No one's going to say anything, you know, whatever it is, what it is. You know, there's really, you know, don't tan, don't do anything, like just let your, you know, shave it, do whatever you want, get close to the scalp like I do. But don't worry that your hair is thinning or anything like that. Just if it is, it is. It's the way nature is. And
yeah, and hopefully you have a head that is good for being bald, because not everybody has a good shaped head.
I'd like to see Dave with a bald head.
Oh, I don't know. I think, see, you have a nice shaped head.
I got the good head for it. Yeah, I do.
Not everybody does. Let's see here. Super chat from Brandon Gregory. Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate it. Halloween 2 was horrible when it came to marketing. There was none. Plus, all the posters just said H2, which only hardcore fans understood. Yeah, the marketing for Halloween 2 wasn't nearly as good, but that alone was not the reason why the movie didn't do well at the box office. That's a fraction of the reason why it didn't do well. I mean, I was, you know, when the movie, I don't know how old you were, Brandon, but in 2009 I was 30, so I remember the buzz and the environment really well, and there were a lot of people that were saying, I really have no interest in going to see this, because even the movie itself, the trailers didn't look like it was a very different movie from what you were seeing in Halloween. It didn't look like a Halloween movie. And the buzz, even though the first movie made $80 million, the buzz coming from Rob Zombie's original was not good.
Right.
So even if the marketing had been good, you know, there are marketing campaigns, there are movies that spend millions and millions of dollars on marketing campaigns, and the movie doesn't make any money, because no matter, like if you don't like the movie, you're not going to go see it, no matter how many trailers you see. So I agree with you that the marketing was not quite as out there as the first one. And that might have played a bit of a fraction to why maybe some people didn't go see it. But $50 million less. Now, keep that in mind, less than 50%. That's like a $300 million movie, its sequel making only $150 million. That's a gigantic drop. That's more than marketing, my friend.
Kyle Sanders. I almost said Kyle Anderson. Kyle Sanders, in your guys' opinions, which Halloween film is the worst? That's a hard one between Resurrection and Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, because those two are pretty much neck and neck with each other. You know what? I'll give it to I'll put Resurrection, in my opinion, to being the worst, because there are good elements to 2 from Rob Zombie's 2 that I can put it slightly above it. Yeah,
I'm going to say Resurrection as well, because I just don't want to take up so much time here. Yeah, I'll say that as well. Yeah.
All right, next question.
Let's see here. Taylor Bouchard says, got a good one for you, Dave. Do you prefer Rob Zombie's Halloween movies over the shit show Halloween 5?
Wait, what was that again?
Do you prefer Rob Zombie's Halloween movies over the shit show Halloween 5? I'm going to say no. But now keep in mind that when I say, again, because I'm not saying you, Taylor, but you know how we live in a world where nuance just ceases to exist. If I was to say something like, I hate Halloween Resurrection more than I hate Halloween 5, many people will take that. Oh, Dave likes Halloween 5. No, I don't. It's like this. It's like, you know, what that means is that what I mean when I say that is I can find more redeeming qualities in a certain movie over another. Mm-hmm. So when I think of Halloween 5, you got Donald Pleasance. When I think of Halloween 5, you know, you've got a nice Salt Lake City, you know, Haddonfield fall atmosphere. Mm-hmm. When I think of Halloween 5, you know, you've got Alan Howarth's score. Yep. When I think of Halloween 5, you know, there's certain things.
Performance is solid.
Daniel Harris, right. So there's, but now they're minor. I mean, again, it's like this, right?
Exactly.
You've asked me which one. Well, okay, it's like by a hair. You know, it's like this. So when I say more, it's not more. It's just, well, okay, if I had to compare, I'd probably go maybe like that because maybe there's one redeeming quality that, or a shot that I like a bit better or whatever. And if you compare the, okay, Dave finds 10 redeeming qualities in Rob Zombie films, but he finds 11 redeeming qualities. And it's that kind of thing. You know, it's not like the night and day that some people like to,
I think, I
say
think
that as, so.
if I were to, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Dave, but if you were to say this, of the Halloween films, Rob Zombie's 1 and 2 and Halloween 5, chances are we're both probably going to watch Halloween 5 more up in the next 20 years than we're going to watch Rob Zombie's Halloweens.
Yes, probably. And I haven't watched Halloween 5 in years. So
there you go.
I mean, I don't know, but Halloween 5 is garbage. I mean, it's just absolute garbage. Anyway, let's go on here.
Air Car 33, Dave and Tony, if they ever made a sequel to the original Halloween, will they have twice? Do you think I can't
another Halloween?
I'm already like stumping myself because I just adding that little line there, I cracked my own self up. Do you think we could be demanding a sequel, or would we have been thankful there was never one? Wait, did I read that? Do you think we would be demanding a sequel, or would we have
or be thankful if there was never one, if they make a sequel to the original Halloween? Oh, I see, Tony. If they never made a sequel to the original Halloween, do you think we'd be demanding a sequel to? I'd think we would be demanding nothing.
Yep.
Are you demanding a sequel to Psycho? I mean, now there were sequels to Psycho, but nobody was demanding it. I mean, nobody was, you know, it's if the original Halloween had never had a sequel, I think there's a good possibility that it would be much more revered today than it is. Because it would be
the answer to that. It's like no one's demanding a sequel to Top Gun. Honestly, I'm not on board with Tom Cruise doing another Top Gun because Top Gun is so good. Why? There's no reason to do it. It's so good. You don't need to give us a sequel. So no, I don't think we would be demanding it.
I don't think so either. And I think the reason is Freddy and Jason.
Yeah.
And this is why, because Freddy and Jason, as those of you that were old enough to remember the 1980s, I've said this many times, were the bona fide horror icons of the 1980s. Michael Myers was nowhere to be found. And the primary reason for that, of course, is because, like I've said, there was not a Halloween movie with Michael Myers for 7 years. Between 1981 and 1988, there was no Michael Myers. And in that time, Freddy and Jason were tearing it up at the box office. Some good, some bad, some in between. But Freddy and Jason were in the pop culture consciousness. It was the 1980s was all about Freddy and Jason. Now, since that time, of course, they fell off the market and Michael sort of took over. But your question is, had there never been if there was never a sequel, would we be demanding one? No, because Halloween would be one of those movies that's like, oh yeah, I remember that really cool, good horror movie from, you know, the 1970s. But because we would have been inundated with so much after that Halloween just would have been its own thing at its own time, like Black Christmas. Even though there was a sequel to Black Christmas, it wasn't very good, but nobody demands that we should get another one or whatever it is. It's its own thing, or, you know. So I don't think so. I don't think there would be a demand for it. I think because we just would have been too much about Freddy and Jason.
Yep, no, I agree. Michelle Lark asks us a question for both of you. Do you guys think maybe you can talk about Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th on their next Two Dudes and Some Bullshit? Well, Michelle, you are in luck because me and Dave have actually already discussed those two topics. Now, that's not to say we are never going to do another one. I'm sure at some point we'll you know, we'll talk and figure out what do we want to do with Nightmare now, what do we want to do with Friday now. But we have already covered these topics, so you can definitely check out the old streams. But rest assured, it won't be the last time. We will definitely bring Freddy and Jason back. For sure. Yep, absolutely. Let's see here. Let's see if we can get somebody that Josh John says, would you guys do an episode on the Phantasm series? Maybe, yeah. I'd have to brush up on my Phantasm. I haven't watched those in a while, but all things possible. Maybe. Anything's possible. I don't think there's really anything off the table per se. It just depends whether or not Tony and I feel motivated to talk about it. Sure. Let's see here. Laura Strapone. Laura's in the house. Says, no love for you guys in Two Dudes series. I'm confused on that. Did we miss it? She must be talking about something else. I'm not really sure. Chris Hess says, Dave, do you believe that the new Child's Play will be a success? Success how? Critical or financial success? And fan success. There's. I mean, I'm sure, like, you know, I mean, it's definitely a movie I'm going to go see. You know, like, it's on my, anticipated films for this year, that and Annabelle. I'm very much looking forward to the upcoming horror season here. It's going to be a lot of fun. Child's Play, Annabelle, It, we've got a good run of films here coming up over starting here at the end of June.
Right.
Success, I mean, like Dave said, how do you define it, critically or financially? And it's hard to say, it really is.
Well, I think it will do. I mean, how much did it cost to make? I'm going to say it cost $30 million to make. I have no idea. Let's say here.
While you're doing that, Brandon, David, Tony, how about doing a Scream? I'm totally on board. Ghostface Scream, hell yeah. We'll totally do. We'll cover Scream one day for sure.
Yeah. Doesn't say at the thing, but I'm sure. Scroll down here.
You got a super chat here from Frank Riker.
Doesn't say. I suspect that the Child's Play 2019 film will do.
I think it'll do
fine.
Yeah.
I think it'll do fine, and I think it will receive mixed reviews. I actually think it will receive. My prediction is it will do fine. It's not going to blow the lid off the box office because it is opening the same weekend as Toy Story. Sorry. But it's counter programming, which doesn't mean necessarily that it's going to work. But I think it will do fine, and I think it will get mixed reviews from fans and critics.
I think it's going to do well its opening weekend, especially from the horror fan community, because we're all going to want to go and see it. We're going to, obviously the comparisons to the original film, that's really going to get. The big question is how much weight will it carry into week 2? Is it going to be something where it's rewatchable and people are going to, because once I see it, I don't really envision myself going back to wanting to see it a second time. If it's good enough, I may add it to my collection of movies, and that's probably going to be it,
Oh, okay. Yep. I understand. Frank Riker says, D&T, Dave and Tony.
D&T.
What's on your professional bucket lists? Well, for me, would definitely be the major motion picture I've been in development on for a long time. The script that I'm writing, that's definitely something that is on my bucket list. I want to accomplish that. Let me see. Just to continue to do what I'm doing. I've never had a real game plan per se in terms of a goal. That movie certainly is one. Voiceover, I've nearly done it all. I haven't. I'd like to do more animation. That's definitely what I would like to do. I have a very strong portfolio when it comes to promos and movie trailers and commercials and all that kind of stuff. And my animation side is a bit weaker. So I definitely would like to up the ante on the animation side a bit more, which would be a lot of fun. But in terms of where it goes, in the entertainment industry, I never sort of set my goal specifically because there's so many variables. Like you have to, in your mind, in my opinion anyway, and Tony might agree, you can have certain things that are kind of like, okay, that would be nice, that would be cool, but you kind of have to leave the door open for spontaneity because you never know who you're going to meet or what sort of thing that's going to open up. You don't want to be married too hard to a specific thing because you might find that in order to get to that thing or married to your process or your steps, because you might find that it's actually the sudden step that comes out of nowhere that's actually going to take you in a roundabout way to the step that you want to accomplish, even though you've always thought that this is the way that you wanted to do it. Do you know what I mean? So it's that sort of kind of thing that I kind of have a mindset on. It's like, whatever kind of I have but I have sort of, it could be roundabout ways that get me there. Tony, what about you?
Well, it's actually crazy that this question was asked because on my Instagram stories today, I actually shared something kind of similar to this question about where I'm at professionally in my life. And I'm just going to quickly read it here. The art of creating isn't defined by one thing. Ask any writer, singer, painter, or photographer. We create the things that we love. It's what motivates us. I love thinking of new ways to shoot these iconic characters in the horror genre. As a creator, I'm the happiest that I've ever been. My photography career is very secured now, and I'm at a point where, as a photographer, I can play and have fun with these photos that I'm creating for you guys on Instagram. And what I mean by that, because I couldn't really elaborate more in the story, which I can hear since this question was asked, is all this stuff that you guys are seeing, other than the mask here that was donated by Chris Baber, But everything else you're seeing, I've purchased. I've contracted people on my own, artists, to design the mask, the Freddy gloves, everything, the Ghostface costume. You know, I paid to get that Scream knife, which was used in the movie. I'm not looking for a profit from this. I'm doing it for fun because I've, like Dave said, I have worked so hard in my photography career to establish myself that I have now a 9-to-5 basically job doing photography Monday through Friday with all my different types of clienteles and doing different types of photo shoots, so that when I'm now doing all this horror shit that I'm doing on Instagram, I'm having fun with that. So professionally, I don't think I could get any happier, because I'm able to, you know, earn a living being a photographer and doing different types of commercial shoots on a weekly basis, and secured with that. I'm not sitting here struggling, you know, looking for that next job. I have my clients lined up, and now I get to have fun. And that's been my goal for, I mean, you ask anyone who's been following me on Instagram, I promoted doing this horror shit like a year and a half ago. And it's taken me now to this point to where I'm, you know, secured, that I can start doing this and having fun. So professionally, dude, I'm just fucking happy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm at that point where I'm relaxed and I'm doing everything I want to do. You know, as far as, you know, advancing my skills, yeah, I'm always going to work on my skills. And, you know, I would love to do a movie with Dave, you know, on the professional, sort of professional level, whatever budget we could put together for his YouTube channel. So, but yeah, I think you could agree with that, Dave, man. When, you know, as a voiceover, you know, you spent all those years going through the struggles, but then when you get to the point where it's like, I'm here, I'm secure, I've got the clients, it's a really fucking cool and good feeling when you've earned it and worked for it.
Yeah, it is. It is. I never take anything for granted. I mean, you know, just last October or November, sorry. I mean, I was walking the red carpet at the Voice Arts Awards with Sigourney Weaver. I mean, it's,
that's gotta be so,
you know,
real for you, you know?
Yeah, well, it is, and it's you don't really have time to reflect on it when you're in the moment, because there's so many people you're talking to, and, you know, so many people there, and photographers and flashbulbs going off, but there are little moments when you're walking into the theater, and you know, when you see your name up on the screen, and you start talking to people afterwards. There's little moments of reminders that, you know, just keep doing what you've done what you've needed to do to get where you want it to be. And I never take it for granted. I mean, it's a difficult, you know, and the life of an actor, which is essentially what I am. I mean, I'm a voice actor, but I'm an actor.
Right.
It's nothing's ever guaranteed. That's the thing, is that it's always, you know, you're always waiting for the next job. You're looking for the next job. You know, it's not, it's a, you know, I mean, you can get to a point where you're established. Yes, I get what Tony is saying, but it's always, you always have to feel like, you know, you got it. You know, you can't lay silent, because if you lay out of sight, out of mind, right? You know, so you have to keep current, and you have to keep yourself out there. So it's been great, but it's been a fun journey for sure, with a lot of ups and downs, and that could be a whole other show there we could talk about. So let's move on here. We got some super chats that came in. Anthony T, thank you, Anthony, much appreciated. H 2018, I think Michael should have killed Laurie and even her daughter. Do you think Jamie Lee said she would not participate in sequel if they went that way? She loved promoting how trauma Laurie was. I don't know, and I don't claim to know the specifics of what Laurie was saying. All I know is that I think Laurie and Michael should have died in the fire. That's what I think. When Michael was, I think Laurie and Michael should have died together, because that gives the bottom weight that movie needed. I understand why they didn't make that choice, because they potentially wanted to bring her back, but I think they should have done that. Laurie should have sacrificed herself to save her family, her daughter and her granddaughter, and, you know, and that would have given that movie real weight, real bottom at that very end, and shocked everybody. And that would have been amazing. So that's what I think they should have done. And then Jamie doesn't have to worry about needing to come back or not.
No, I've always said I never understood in that film where Michael's like Stephen Curry shooting threes from all over the place, and he's in a zone killing people left and right. And then we get to the end, and he looks like a bumbling moron, and he can't kill one of the three Strode women. Yeah, I'm not.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. And I just think just imagine that, how full circle that would have been. Laurie and Michael dying in the fire at the end, and it's intense, and everybody's screaming, and Karen's mom, and Allison's grandma, and everything's get out of here, get out of here. Like, it just, oh my God, it would have been the weight that movie needed. What ifs, exactly. Laura Strapone says, nothing but love for you guys, two dudes and series. Thank you guys. Would you cover Final Destination series? Oh, I see your response. Oh, that's what you meant to the thing that you said. Okay, cool. Would you cover the Final Destination series? I come up with some ideas all the time for it. I think a lot of people do.
Yeah. The thing is, honestly,
I don't know.
First two. I've never watched any of them past that. So
yeah, I think I might have only seen, I got to admit, I might have only seen the first one.
Yeah. I mean, it's not something that we can't not talk about. Maybe I think that's something that me and Dave would have to sit there and go, okay, how do we want to approach it? Maybe approach it like we did with Child's Play. Maybe cover the first film, maybe the second film, and
right.
Leave it at that.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever off the table.
Nope, nothing's ever off the table. All right, we'll go for a bit longer. Let's
Michael
see
Anderson, bigger impact on the horror genre, Stephen King or Wes Craven? He says King. Dave, do you want to start?
Bigger impact on the horror genre, Stephen King or Wes Craven?
You're talking about an author and a director. King's been writing. He continues to write. So
I'm on the horror genre. Probably Stephen King.
Yeah, I mean that's what I would say as well too. They're not minimizing Craven. What Craven?
No.
But
no, not at all.
We were talking about this before we went live. I went on a King Fest last week. I watched Sleepwalkers, Secret Window, The Stand, The Shining. Somehow I ended up in like the entire S category of his stuff.
The way I judge this is you have to look at the pop culture consciousness.
Yeah.
So I think, and again, I don't have any stats, obviously, because I haven't taken a poll, but I think it's safe to presume that more people in the general populace would not only know the name Stephen King, but know many of his properties.
Yeah.
When you say the name Freddy Krueger, most people would know that.
Yep.
But not everybody knows the name Wes Craven.
That's true.
And outside of Scream and Elm Street, Wes Craven's other movies, which are very popular in the horror genre.
Yep.
Okay. The Hills Have Eyes, Last House on the Left, The People Under the Stairs, I think it was They, right? There's a lot of things that he's done, but he's not in the pop culture consciousness in a general sense like King is. You go up onto the street and you say, do you know who Stephen King is? 95% of people are going to say yes. And if you say Cujo, if you say, Carrie, Christine, and then you start saying, even Stand By Me, The Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, we have to forget those are his movies too, or his stories too. And then you say things like, The Shining, and then Pet Sematary, and then It, and then, do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, oh my God, there are so many of his name properties in the broader pop culture consciousness, right?
Yep.
Not just horror fans.
The only person
I think it comes down to Stephen King.
Yeah, and I think the only person who I think you can put in the same sentence as King, that in the pop culture consciousness that were about 95% of the people are going to know the name, would probably be Alfred Hitchcock. He would be the one name that you could go up to on the street. People are going to know the name Alfred Hitchcock. I mean,
when it comes to horror, yes.
Yeah. So like as far as impact, I would say King and Hitchcock are like literally neck and neck with each other.
And that's not to devalue the impact of what Craven did in the slasher genre, because it's huge. But we're talking that consistent, that broader, Craven, for all intents and purposes, he's got Freddy and Ghostface. But when you look at King, he's got like I said, The Shining, Cujo, Christine, Carrie, Pet Sematary, It, Firestarter. It just goes on. And then you look at the stuff that's not even horror.
Yeah.
It's huge. So
I'm actually reading Stephen King's Night Shift, which actually this is got Children of the Corn in it. It's a bunch of short stories. Lawnmower Man was out of it. The Stand was from here. So I'm in the middle of the reading King right now.
Awesome. Let's see here. Patrick Hartnett says, can Hollywood come up with a new boogeyman? Here's the problem is is we're in it. We're entering a different sort of the horror movies, even though it might not feel like it because they don't necessarily get the respect on a broader scale that some people want them to have. They've evolved. Like horror movies in the 70s and the 80s, American horror movies now, okay, in the 70s and the 80s were your Elm Streets, were your Friday the 13th. You know, that generally was a horror movie, you know, was a slasher movie. Now horror movies have so many subgenres and they're gaining more credibility and maturity that to bring in a boogeyman in the slasher genre, let's say, slasher genres haven't really evolved, but horror has, right? The slasher genre was a B movie at best in the 70s and 80s, and it's still kind of B movie, right? Whereas the horror genre has evolved into the psychological, you know, into the paranormal, the thriller. There's this, you know, into Get Out and Us and you know, so many different things that are coming along now in horror that I don't know if a new, like I get asked that all the time. Do you think we'll ever have like another Freddy, you know, Jason that just, you know, becomes iconic? You might get somebody that becomes iconic in the horror genre, but I don't know if you'll get somebody who becomes iconic in the pop culture again, you know, like Freddy and Jason. I don't know.
Well, yes, I think that it depends on who you talk to, because in the younger generation right now, the surprising hit that I've enjoyed, and it's got a big, massive following on Instagram because I follow it on Instagram, is Happy Death Day and the Babyface. Now, I wouldn't put that character in the, you know, Michael, Jason type category on that level, but I would say that for current day, for creating a new character, because I got to tell you, I ate a lot of fucking crow. I was shitbagging on the idea of that movie, and I actually ended up enjoying it so much that I have contracted a guy out in Australia to make me the Babyface mask identical to the movie so that I can do photos of it. And he sent me the knife. This is literally, we froze a screenshot in the first Happy Death Day to see what the handle of the knife looked like. And he made it literally to a T, and made out of aluminum, except it won't hurt you. So he made me a replica Happy Death Day knife, which in essence I could use as Halloween. And
I was just gonna say, it looks exactly like it.
But yeah, you know, to the point of like the little hook and all this stuff here at the end, that character is so popular right now, and I'm seeing it on social media how popular that character is, that I'm making the conscious decision to go, okay, I should probably include this, because with the new young audience out there that's going to watch horror movies, I would, again, not put it on the level of Michael, Jason, and Freddy, but it has become Babyface has become a very popular figure right now. And the movies are good. They're decent movies.
Yeah, yes, there's only been 2 of them, and yes, but it's become popular in the horror genre. Like if you ask anybody, like, and that's the difference. Well, and that's pretty much what you were saying, is that when you go back to the 1980s, Freddy and Jason were popular everywhere.
Right.
And that's primarily because horror had a surgence in the 1980s and the slasher genre was cool in the 1980s. The slasher genre since then, because there have been so many bad movies in the late 80s, early 90s, the slasher genre was relegated to, you know, what it was, a B movie shit show. And then Scream sort of revitalized it, but Scream is not Scream had a gimmick. Scream had a shtick. Right. Scream, for all intents and purposes, yes, I guess it's a slasher movie, but there's a very specific shtick and formula that made Scream appealing to a broader audience. Okay. And that it's not just a slasher movie. There's the gimmick of Scream that made it appealing, and Ghostface entered the pop culture. You know what I mean? Babyface hasn't done that. And popular amongst horror fans.
If you go on Instagram, dude, I'm telling you, you would be really surprised at the following that it has. I was shocked.
I'm not shocked at all. It doesn't shock me at all.
Now, but we'll be talking about Babyface 20, 30 years from now, the way we talk about Ghostface, that, you know, remains to be seen. You might need a couple more films.
Well, you need Babyface to enter the pop culture consciousness. And what I mean by that is you need Babyface, you know, like Freddie and Jason were coming out on Leno, you know, and they were coming out like Jason was on, you know, Arsenio Hall, and you had, you know, Freddie had, you know, Freddie's Nightmares, you know, and, you know, like that's what I mean, that it enters, like it's everywhere. And Babyface, you know, you would need to have, you know, not Jay Leno, sorry, Jimmy Fallon. He has Babyface come on, like but it's a different world. It's a different world, and it's just, you know, popular in horror, yes, and people might know, oh, that's from that Happy, but nowhere near the stratosphere that those two characters sort of entered. And again, there's a variety of reasons for that, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely.
It has that type of potential. That
well, it's like the potential that the, you know, Fisherman had in I Know What You Did Last Summer. People were like, oh, the fisherman's gonna, and look what happened.
Right.
You know? Frank Reiger, super chat. Thanks, Frank. D&T, what is the one thing you dislike about your professions?
Hearing the word no.
Yeah, that's always a good one.
When you're fighting for a job, you know, and competing, and you hear the word no, and believe me, man,
I would say the one thing I dislike about my profession is probably the one thing many people might dislike about certain professions is just the phoniness of some people.
Yes.
Just that. You know,
that's why, you know, through the encouragement of a lot of people on my Instagram, Dave, you nailed that shit right on the money. The reason why I made the conscious decision to change over what I was typically doing on Instagram is I felt like that. I felt fake. I felt phony. I felt like I was trying to do everything else out there that all the other photographers are doing, you know, the hipster landscape, cool photos, which I'm not knocking those photographers who do it, but I felt like I'm not being true to myself. This is not what I want to do. And it was through the encouragement, it was through doing this show with you, and some of the encouragement from people that had followed me early on were like, dude, just do the horror thing. Don't worry about it. And like I said today, I'm telling you, I'm the happiest that I've been in a long time as a creator, because I'm doing the shit that I want to do. I'm not faking it. I'm not trying to be like anyone else. So yes, what you just said there, dude, I so can fucking relate to that shit.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, you got to be true. Excuse me. You got to be true to yourself and let the chips fall where they may. And there's a lot of phony people in the entertainment industry, and in a lot of industries. And I certainly have come across them in my time. I mean, there's a lot of people that yeah, anyway, that's a whole other show, but I agree. I agree. All right, let me see here. Mohammed Camber says, Tony, although Halloween 4 is your favorite, do you admit that it removed some of the scary elements of Michael since it gave the impression that he can't die? 1 and 2 are the true character of The Shape. Tony, what do you think?
No, I'll never say anything negative about Halloween. You're not going to trick me into that, man. No. In seriousness, oh, my rental period. I rented not Halloween. I rented Friday the 13th Part 5. It's the only one I don't know, because I haven't watched it in a while, and I just got a notification that my rental period is now over. So justice
for the what the hell was his name? The fat kid that got chopped up by.
I can't remember now. But as far as that, no, I actually, in seriousness, I really feel that, given the fact that the writer had 11 days to put this script together, Donald Pleasance's performance in there, Daniel Harris's performance, and even Ellie's performance as Rachel, I still think Halloween 4 did a real solid job. You know, I know the shoulder pad, George P. Wilbur, I get the mask argument, and I'm totally agreeing on that. But overall, I thought the essence of Michael, they tried their best, I think, to stay true to who Michael was in the first 2 films. I didn't think they elaborated on it too much, because it really, you know, Michael's big moment where, you know, he was taken down wasn't until the end. So throughout the movie, you're not seeing him being dehumanized. I mean, okay, he survives the ambulance crash, you know, I mean, yeah, I guess you can say that, but that may be really it. Other than that, throughout the whole movie, he still comes across as this supernatural element up until the end, when he takes a bunch of shotgun shells to the chest.
Well, he does, but I think an important factor, and you know me, I'm the last person to defend that kind of thing. But to be fair and to give credit where credit is due, the ending of Halloween 4, which again is one of the most iconic in horror, but doesn't reveal that Michael survived.
Right.
The ending of Halloween 4 actually reveals that we have a problem with
Jamie.
Yeah. So as far as we knew in 1988, watching that movie, Michael is dead. And that may have been where they were going with it. I don't think that's what they should have done.
Right.
I think that, well, there's a whole other thing I have there, but I think that so where was the question? The question was, says it gave the impression that he can't die. I don't necessarily think there is an impression. To be fair, I think what Muhammad is saying is
referring to surviving the burn from 2.
Yeah. The fact that we're getting a part 4 at all,
right,
gives the impression that he can't die. But so that might have been what you're alluding to. But
if that's what he's alluding to, then yes, I agree, because that's the only element of beyond supernatural that he's inhuman. That fact that he survives the fire from Halloween 2. But other than that, throughout the whole movie, no, you don't see that he's this invincible force, because he ultimately does get taken down at the end. And like Dave just said, the big reveal and the shocker is the biggest shocker that we've ever seen at the end of any of the Halloween films is the reveal of Jamie.
Yes. It's a great reveal. It's accented and complemented nicely with Donald Pleasance. No. I mean, it's just great.
Yeah.
Just great.
I absolutely agree. Dave and Tony from Chris Hest. Which classic horror movie from the 40s, oh man, now you're going to make me think, and 50s, do you think could be reinvented for modern day and actually work really well?
1 sec here.
Well, you could, well, no, that's going back to the 30s. I was going to start pulling up the old monster films like, Wolfman, Dracula, and Frankenstein.
I'm going to say, I don't think there
No, that was part of the 40s. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to say, I don't think there needs to be a remake.
No.
For this, because it's one of my favorite movies of all time. And it's not traditionally horror, but it is a Hitchcock film, and it's from 1954, and it's his Rear Window. Now, before anybody says, oh, no, they did. That's what Shia LaBeouf's, Disturbia was. No, Shia LaBeouf's Disturbia wasn't a remake of Rear Window. It was taking the story trope, the element that was used in Rear Window, and modernizing it and putting it wasn't a remake of Rear Window, because if it was a remake of Rear Window, it would have been about a guy in an apartment looking out his window. You know what I'm saying? And that's what but that element of thinking you see somebody being killed across the street, that element has been used in multitude of movies, not just Disturbia and Rear Window. I would love to see a real serious, I can't say I would love to see it, but I'm saying I think it would be interesting if they had the right people behind it to do a real serious, genuinely frightening remake of Rear Window. And it's about this guy who's, up in his apartment, and he's up there for whatever reason, and he starts looking out and he starts seeing shit. Like to be able to modernize, I think you might be able to make a very frightening, legitimate psychological thriller utilizing that.
Christopher Reeves, though, I thought
they did. Yeah. There was a TV, I think it was made for TV in the late 90s. Oh, sorry. I think it was, yes, because I think they were utilizing the fact that he was in a wheelchair. Right?
Chat too. Yeah.
Yeah. But but I'm talking about today.
I got you.
Yeah. The Christopher Reeves one was from the late 90s, I believe. And I would love to see them actually redo it in a real sort of really scary, like get somebody on board who's it's a real, sophisticated thriller. And you watch the movie and you're like, damn, this is really good. Really fucks with your mind and gets in your head. And I think it would be cool.
Mine's more on the comedy horror side. They could, for the fun of it, for those who haven't seen it, Bud Abbott and Lou Costello, the guys who do the Who's on First routine, they did a black and white film back in the day with Bud Abbott and Lou Costello meets Dracula, Wolfman, and Frankenstein. Great classic film. I always watch it every October and love it. For the fun of it, I would love to see them do a modern take on it. And the two people I could see doing it, and it has to be in these, the characters from Pineapple Express would be Seth Rogen and James Franco. And in the characters of the stoners from Pineapple Express. So now you got to picture that with the whole concept of, you know, they're meeting Frankenstein, Wolfman, and Dracula. That would be a funny film.
That would be funny. They just might be the right people to actually do that.
They would be the right ones to do it in that type of character from Pineapple Express. That would be a funny flick.
Super chat from Anthony T. Thanks, Anthony. You're a voice actor and you love to talk. You do funny enough, I'm not talking that much when I'm not doing this. You do YouTube often and streams and rants. Do you worry about losing your voice? How do you take care of it? I don't worry about losing my voice unless I'm about to do a rant that I know I'm going to be talking a lot in and screaming. I will probably tend to do those at night and not in the morning. That way I can recover when I go to sleep. I don't do anything special to take care of my voice. I just, you know, try to wash my hands if somebody's sick, or if, you know, if my buddy is sick and he's really sick, like really out, like, oh, maybe I won't get together, you know, we'll hang out after he's recovered. But there isn't anything that I do that's magical or whatever. I could lie and say, oh yes, I take some tea and some little serum that I put in the tea. No, I don't do it. I just common sense. Let's see. Laura super chat. Thank you, Laura. Appreciate it. At Tony, happy early B-Day. Do you have a birthday wish? Tony, do you have a birthday wish?
Well, don't forget, Dave's birthday is 5 days before mine. 4 days before mine.
Damn it, I'm trying to keep that quiet. God damn it. No.
Remember, you're going to be 40 for 5 whole days before I'm 40, okay?
Yes, that's right. That's right. Do you have an early do you have a birthday wish, Tony?
Man, that, you know, we just continue to do what we're doing here, you know, the success and the growth of, you know, this show, and, you know, how it's beginning to opening up, you know, my audience on Instagram and continuing to open up Dave's channel. If I can be a good help and assistant to continuing to grow his channel, because I really enjoy doing this with Dave. You know, I think you reach a point when you get to our ages, you know, material things just, you know, you don't like, you know, wish for certain things or whatever, as far as gifts go. But no, I mean, there's nothing really like one specific thing that I can, you know, pinpoint down, but just continue to live a decent life and be a good person and continue to make good photos for you guys to enjoy, and continue to do this with Dave. And hopefully me and Dave can be here being 90-year-old men talking about Halloween.
That's right. That's right. It's entirely possible. It's entirely possible. Frank Riker says your biggest, thanks for the super chat, Frank, says your biggest oh shit moment in movies. Well, there's a few of them, but the first one that suddenly came into my head after I read that was when I was watching Stephen King's The Mist, and the ending of that movie, I was like, oh shit, he didn't have to kill everybody. Oh, spoiler. Fuck that. Spoiler. Well, it's 12 years old. But I was like, oh, shit. I thought it was a fantastic ending. And Frank Darabont, the director of that movie, actually said that he would not direct the movie unless he was able to do that ending. And it's like, oh, shit. Like, he was so close to actually, he didn't have to. Oh, man. That was, I remember that. I remember that, like, shocking me when I watched it. And I watched it, like, not long after it came out, like 2007, 8, something like that. It was a while ago.
I was going to say Halloween 4, even though that is an oh shit shocking ending. And now for me, I know what it is, but anytime I show it to someone new, they get the oh shit moment. But I will say I did have one because there was no hint of it at all throughout the movie. There's a movie with Robert Pattinson that I saw with a friend of mine a long time ago. And this is not a spoiler because the movie's been out for well over a decade. And I feel if you haven't seen it now, well, yeah, it's just your fault. It's called Remember Me. It's got Pierce Brosnan in it and whatnot. And it's just kind of rom-com, not really rom-com, but it's kind of like a dramatic comedy, romance. I'm sorry, not comedy, romance. And it's a decent film. That was the beginning of me going, okay, this dude is more than just vampire in Twilight. He's got some acting chops, and he's definitely progressed as an actor.
You mean Robert Pattinson?
Robert Pattinson, yeah.
Yeah, you said Pierce Brosnan.
He's up. Pierce Brosnan's in it as well too.
Oh, okay, okay.
Plays his dad in the movie.
Oh, okay.
And the ending of Remember Me, like I didn't see it coming. Have you seen the movie?
Me? No, I haven't.
Are you gonna see it? I don't want to spoil it if you plan on seeing it.
Fuck. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Well, the ending turns out to be a 9/11 movie.
Like, oh, yes. Yes.
You don't see this coming, like literally at all throughout this whole movie. It's this kind of, he's got this bad relationship with his father and, kind of hot-headed kid in college, meets this girl who kind of tames him down, falls in love. They have this like romance throughout the summer. Everything's going fine. Then he kind of patches things up with him and his dad, who ultimately we find out works at the World Trade Center, and he's stuck on top of the building on 9/11. I was like, that was the kind of the oh shit ending that like I didn't see coming, because there was no fucking clue of that this was going to be about 9/11. And even though the film's not really about 9/11, it turned into that at the end of the film. So that was
very cool. Very cool. Yeah, no, those things, that's not going to ruin it for me.
Yeah.
Super chat from Southpaw84. Thank you, Southpaw84. Much appreciated. It says, my top 3 remakes, Christine, Dean Koontz, Watchers, and Prophecy, the Monster Movie. Are you familiar with those films and books? Well, Christine, obviously.
Yeah, Christine.
Dean Koontz is arguably a sort of a Stephen King, kind of. Yeah, he's kind of that kind of a guy. But I am not familiar with Watchers or Prophecy of the Monster, so I can't speak to those. Tony, yourself?
I got to go with The Thing. I love Carpenter's The Thing. Christine, yeah, but Chainsaw Massacre definitely was a really good remake. We said that earlier in the stream. Let's see here. Most of the remakes have sucked. That's the thing. I mean, there are some decent ones that are out there. Thing, Christine, Chainsaw.
It's difficult, folks.
It is. It's. I'm trying to sit there and think like, what was a really decent, solid remake that I actually thoroughly enjoyed. Those 3 are the first ones that come to my mind. Evil Dead remake was decent. It's solid. I don't really hate on it so much. The Crazies was, it was all right. I still prefer the original.
2004's Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead. Yeah, that's pretty solid as well too. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Ooh, Chris Hurley, Dave and Tony, ever experienced ghosts or anything supernatural? Me, I've only experienced in some of these like abandoned plantation houses that you just get a creepy feeling like this is not right. Like nothing, I've never saw anything physically move or, if I heard anything, it probably was in my head. But that's more just creepy feeling, Dave.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, it'd take way too long.
Yeah, I didn't know.
It would take way too long for me to get into here. Yes, I have, but it's a whole story that goes with it, so I have to reserve it for another show. Let's see here. Vampire's Coffin says Night of the Living Dead, 1990. Nah, I prefer the 68 original, or 69, 68, 68, I think.
Yeah,
I prefer the original. Goob says, when was Christine made? 83, 4, somewhere around there. 83 or 4. I think it was somewhere around there. Movie Chat and More says, I spit on your grave. Well, if you want to. No, I haven't seen those movies. No, I know what you're talking about, but I haven't seen them. Let's see here. Mikeyson says, Tony Dave, how about The Little Shop of Horrors? I haven't seen that movie in years.
Neither have I.
That's been a long time. Laura Strapone says, at Dave and Tony, ever seen Duel? Oh, yeah, Duel. Yeah. One of my, that's, of course, Spielberg's first movie, 1971. Well, his first sort of legit, professional.
Jaws on Land.
Sorry?
I call it Jaws on Land.
That's essentially what it was. Yeah, I love Duel. I own it, and I actually had it up on my Patreon as something to vote for as a Saturday movie night, but everybody voted for The Fog. Oh. Let's see here.
Did anyone see Andy E? Did anyone see the Zac Efron Ted Bundy movie? Yeah, I saw it. I thought it was really good. I enjoyed it.
Haven't seen it yet.
So yeah, I think Dave, you'll
haven't seen it yet. Don't tell me how it ends.
Well, let's just say,
ah, man. Frank Riker, super chat. Thanks, Frank. Best junk food at the movies. Ooh. I kind of like. There's these little. They're almost like sweet tarts. I don't know what they're little candies that I get from a vending machine, and I just fill like a little thing of them, and I just like, yeah, I like those. Popcorn's always good, but I find when I go to the movies, I rarely get popcorn. I don't know, Tony, what about you?
Okay, if I'm just going and I'm good and like I'm normal Tony, probably popcorn. If I'm Tony and I've had a little green before that, then I'm going totally nachos and cheese. Yeah, because that satisfies the munchie crave.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Let's see here. Adam Carl Green says films you've watched in the cinema which caused the best crowd reaction.
Oh, for me, there was 2 experiences I'll never forget in a theater with the best crowd reaction. I think I talked about this once before.
The Conjuring was a good one.
Yeah, Home Alone. The audience was laughing their ass off, and they stood up and cheered at the end. And the same thing. It's the same thing. The audience stood up and cheered at the end of Independence Day. It was just like, that was like a pretty cool experience. Other than that, those are the only 2 where the audience was so together on the film. Other than that, I haven't experienced anything beyond that since.
Yeah. Chris Hurley says Spielberg actually first started with Rod Sterling's Night Gallery starring Joan Crawford. Yes, he did. I was talking about his first major feature. I was talking about his feature. Yeah. He directed Joan Crawford, and Joan was like, "Who the fuck is this 21-year-old kid going to direct me?" Yeah, he got a lot of shit for that. That was tough. But in terms of his own movie that he could take on, which of course people forget that Duel was actually made for TV film. It was Duel, 1971. But no, you're right about the Joan Crawford thing. But that wasn't that was more of a well, he was just a second here. I want to make sure Joan Crawford, because I want to make sure I get that right. And there it. What is it? Whatever happened to Baby Jane? God, that's good. That's so fucking good.
You know what's a good movie too that I just saw here recently from the 80s, a little bit fucking weird and twisted. I don't know if you've ever seen it. You ever seen the movie called Basket Case?
If
you haven't,
no, I haven't.
You gotta check it out. It's a pretty freaking creepy movie from the 80s. It's a horror movie.
Yeah, I just wanted to double check. Yeah, Rod Sterling's Night Gallery, of course, was a TV movie, and he directed the segment portion, which I wanted to make sure was segment. Oh, sorry, Eyes. Yeah, which was the segment he directed. But of course, you also have Barry Shear in there and Boris Segal as well, who directed Escape Route and The Cemetery. But Duel was his first own professional legit. That's it. You're all in, kid. It's only you. Yes, Frank Riker, super chat. Thanks, Frank. What movie character would you like to beat up? I'm gonna say beat up. Any bully character that's picking on a kid.
I was gonna say any bullying character, because I'm not really a violent person to begin with.
Yeah.
Even though I do like all violence, not really violence, implied violence on Instagram.
Right.
I'm not a violent person, but yeah, I'd have to agree with Dave on that. Any type of bullying, because bullying, I just have zero tolerance for that shit.
Yeah. All right, we'll go for a couple more minutes here because I got to. I actually haven't eaten. I got to get off and grab some grub. I went for a run when I should have been eating, but so I'm getting a little hungry. But yeah, we'll go for a little bit.
There was a question here, and I had to scroll back up real quickly.
We'll take a couple more questions.
Yeah, monstrous villain every day. He knows what that question was for. That was a quick one. Where is it? I'm sorry. Hold on. I had it. Here we go. Vampire's Coffin. Dave and Tony, what's your favorite horror trilogy?
Horror trilogy?
Yeah.
There's very rarely do horror movies end in trilogies. Are you saying what 3 movies of a horror series do I like? Or are you saying what horror series that only has 3 movies do you like? Because a trilogy means that there's only 3 movies.
Right.
You know, like you can't call the Elm Street series You know, oh no, I like the sister trilogy. No, fuck off with that. Well, Halloween, you could make the argument because there's so many different timelines, but in reality, if you want to remove the semantics and you want to look at it, Halloween is not, it's not a trilogy. There's no sister trilogy. You know, there's no, it's a bunch of crap. So, but in terms of horror trilogies, I don't know. It's a good question. I'd have to think on that.
I'm with Dave on it. Robert, I can't pronounce your last name, Tithoff. Besides being dated, what is your biggest criticism of the 1978 Halloween, Dave?
Well, my biggest criticism of the 1978 Halloween, I think would probably be, it's a tough one. And the reason why it's a tough one, because you have to take into consideration the budget. You have to take into consideration the time. And when something is dated, that's not necessarily a flaw. Right. So because it's dated, because it's a representation of the time or the budget or the, you know, the means at the disposal that they were being, that was being utilized. If I had to pick a flaw that I think was maybe some of the editing's a little choppy. Like if you watch any of the original, there's the scene when Tommy is coming towards the screen with
okay, I know where you're going.
Yeah, and then it kind of just sort of cuts in. It's a weird jump cut. And then of course there's the audio flaw, and as an audio guy, this always bothered me. They've since fixed it in the Blu-ray and the 4K versions. But when Annie says, "Hey jerk, speed kills," there are a lot of people that have tried to convince me that no, it was a conscious choice to have the Halloween theme go up an octave, and it wasn't. It was a mistake, because if it was intentional, then they would not have eliminated the intent in future, but because it's no longer there. And you can notice a bit of a almost like an edit, but it's masked really well. It's the moment where she says, "Hey jerk, speed kills," and the car stops and you hear dun, 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 dun. It goes up an octave, and it's kind of, yeah, it's like, what happened there? And it's almost like during the film, like the actual it was weird. It sounds distorted and strange. Whereas in the like I said, the Blu-ray and the 4K versions of that movie, that's gone. You kind of hear there was something there, but they've maintained a level, or it's better. The transition's better. They've done something to mask that. So that always bothered me, even as a kid, because it was like, that just seems like a mistake to me. So there's things like that. There's a couple of things like that throughout the movie that I think are just, but again, you could say, well, but that's a product of the time. Okay. Yes. But that's an actual, that's a mistake. Yeah. You know, having the girls, you know, say lingo that sounds cheesy today, that's not a mistake. That's a product of the time. That's not a mistake. Right. The actual cuts and jumps and things like that actually should not be there, no matter what era, you know, you're in. Yeah. So little things like that. I'm sure if I watched it again, I could pick up a couple others. What about you?
My only complaint just was for a movie that's supposed to be really almost like in the heart of fall and supposed to be the end of October.
Oh,
very green, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, look, I understand it. They filmed it, like, it was in April, right, of 78 or 76?
April. Yep.
That was it. I really wished, that's what I love about Halloween 4 is the aesthetic, beginning opening there, that you have that fall vibe and you have that, you know, really autumn atmosphere that you should have in a Halloween film. That's what it should look like in October. And I felt like that, you know, for a movie to be called Halloween, it should have felt more like that. Yeah, I know they had leaves on the ground and whatnot, but come on. I mean,
no. I mean, we're shot in April. Yeah, you're in Pasadena, California, and West Hollywood. Well, the West Hollywood stuff was at night, but all the daytime was Pasadena. And you know, I've been to Pasadena many times, as you guys know. And yeah, it's certainly, although I've gone in the fall, the two times I've been, I've actually gone in the fall. And because they actually do have some trees there that do change color. But yes, that is one that I could certainly put on the list as well. That is something that they probably should have thought about a bit more, you find that even though Halloween 2 was also shot in the same kind of areas, because most of Halloween 2 takes place at night, you don't really notice,
Yeah.
the fall foliage. That is one of the strengths of Halloween 4 and 5 and even Halloween 6.
Yep.
One of their redeeming qualities is the fact that you definitely feel the fall autumn environment.
Yeah. And it does. I feel that it does when you have that fall atmosphere and environment. And I agree with Dave on 4, 5, and 6. It really does add that element to the movie that you feel like, yeah, I'm watching a Halloween movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I agree. K316, K316, thank you for the super chat. Hey, Dave and Tony, have you seen the horror movie called Phantasm? We were just talking about that a bit earlier. I have, but not in a long time. Tony?
Same. Been a minute.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go to 9:45, and then we'll call it a night. We'll call it a night. 9:45. All right, Tony, pick one.
Someone asked us here from Rob Zombie's Halloween here. Okay, Brent Boomberg. What do you guys think of Scout Compton's acting in Halloween 2? We kind of talked about it earlier, and since this is a Rob Zombie night for his Halloween films, I thought we'd come back to it really quickly and circle around. I said this before. She has some redeeming qualities in that film. I don't blame her where they took her at certain points in the movie because that's all on Rob Zombie. It's his vision. He's the director. He's telling her what to do. But I did feel her performance in certain scenes was very strong. The scenes between her and Margaret Kidder. The hospital scene, I thought she was phenomenal in that. And then throughout the films, for the car scene I mentioned earlier as well, too, when she's having that freak out moment when the reveal, she finds out she's Michael's sister. Again, I thought, she for an actress, she gave a solid performance. Unfortunately, it's just surrounded by a bunch of freaking garbage. But that's not minimizing what she did. She did her job and she did it well.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, she has a good set of lungs, and
which was overkill.
That was going to be my next point, is that I understand that he's utilizing a character that now suffers from major PTSD. Yep. And there were moments where it was warranted for her to be screaming and yelling. The problem is when somebody suffers from PTSD, it's not just all about how loud can you scream and how epic can you sound. And, oh, wow, for me, the more she screamed, the more it felt like Zombie was overcompensating and trying to go, look how torn she is. Look, she's damaged. Look, there's other ways you can show that, and which would have also helped Scout to show a bit more range than just screaming and yelling. She can scream and yell, and it looks very convincing, but a lot of people can do that. Danielle Harris was screaming and yelling too, and it looked pretty damn convincing. Yep. So I just think it would have been nice to see maybe some alone time, maybe some subtle things where she and not that it's not there, but just more on show the spectrum of the PTSD, not just the it's like she's doing that well. It's great, but there was a lot of that. But to be fair, that's what she was told to do. But I just would have liked, because there's something there, I don't know what, but there was something there, and it just was never fully realized. And I think maybe if we had seen a bit more, it may have been. But I mean, white trash coming from white trash, I guess. I don't know. Yep. Super chat, Jim D. Thanks, Jim. Says, Tony, where did you get the Mrs. Voorhees head?
Mrs. Voorhees was from an industry guy who works in the movie industry, who makes props and whatnot. And I contracted him. Cost me about $500 to have him made, and he did a great job. He went off of the still images of what you could have from Friday 2, but I also gave him the reference of Friday 3, because at the beginning. No, is it the beginning that there's a pause moment where you see they just kind of focus on the head, because they bookend, they start 3 with the ending of 2, and then you see Mrs. Voorhees' head, and it's a really clean shot of it. So right. I'm positive that's what it is, and I told him that's going to be your best, that's your money shot to really get that front face, and then
now, is that a head or a mask?
No,
Is it a mask?
No. It's
just a head.
It's a head. And the dude did a really, really good job. Obviously it's not what it was. It Savini who did the head in 2, or was it the other dude? I can't remember. I know Savini did the makeup for the first film, but I don't know if he did it for the second film. But he did a phenomenal job, and he works in, he obviously, you can tell by the craftsmanship.
Yeah.
In the movie industry, he does this for a living. Working in Atlanta, I've made connections here as a photographer, and I've just contracted these people to make this stuff because I'm all about going balls to the walls in these photos and giving you guys 100% accuracy.
That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. Let's see here. Movie Chat and More asked a question earlier that I meant to answer and I forgot. He said, I'm going to paraphrase. You said something like, is it just you? You said, is it just me, or do you dislike H18 the more I watch it, or something like that? And the question, or I don't like it, or I like it more the more I watch it. The answer is I just feel the same way about it. I've seen the movie 3 times, and I just think it's fine as a little modern slasher, but I don't think it's a very good Halloween movie, and it only made $250 million worldwide at the box office because of hype and momentum. It's not a $250 million movie. It's not. It's not. It was fine, but I've been a lot of people. I said this a long time ago. I don't think it has a lot of rewatch value long term. And I think that in many years, people will still consider Halloween 2, 1981, the official sequel. And I've heard from some people who've messaged me and said they already feel that way. It's starting to wear off. Like they've watched it so many times. It's just like, there's nothing there.
I called it, and I got so much bullshit from that. I said that the 2018 Halloween film doesn't have long steam. It's gonna, everybody got caught up in the mystique and the magic of, we're getting a new film, and it's been 10 years since the last film, which was Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, which, obviously we just talked about tonight. It wasn't great. I said this, and I took a lot of shit from people, but it's turning out to be true because more and more people are coming out and even messaging me saying, dude, you're right. This film, the 2018 film, does not have the life shelf. And to me, it's not the direct sequel. The direct sequel is the 1981 film, and end of story.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't. It's it's, you can watch on your own merits and enjoy, an hour and a half or whatever, but no, it's not a very good Halloween movie. There's a lot of missed opportunities in there. When I watched it at the world premiere here in Toronto, I walked out and I knew instantly. I thought it was fine. It was a nice, the coolest thing about Halloween 2018 is not Halloween 2018. The coolest thing about Halloween 2018 is just revisiting with a few old friends for an hour and a half. I mean, that's it. It's just like, oh, cool. It's Laurie. It's Jamie playing Laurie. Cool. Oh, cool. It's John Carpenter's new score. Cool. Oh, cool. Look, there's that one shot of Nick Castle. Oh, that's kind of cool. Like it was like just a party that you go to for an hour and a half. You're like, hey, what's up? Hey, how you doing? You're looking good. You look, but the party was kind of shit. Right. But it was kind of cool to see that person. I said it a long time ago. You said it. I don't think it has legs. I think once the honeymoon phase wore off, a lot of people would be looking at it going, yeah, it's fine. I've watched it 10 times now because it's all exciting and it's the only Halloween movie I have. But they're starting to see more of the flaws, and they're starting to go, oh, it's just kind of, it's okay. And I thought it was, like I said, I gave it a C+, and I gave it a C+ not because I think it's a great Halloween movie. I gave it a C+ because of some of the redeeming things that I thought that they did well.
I bet you that C+ turns into a D before 5 years from now.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm pretty consistent with how I feel about it, but I get what you're saying. Yeah. I think it's a shame. I don't think it's not a bad movie. I mean, It's not a garbage film. I mean, there's certainly worse movies out there, but when you watch it, you go, yes, a lot of passion. When I don't know if David Gordon, I just don't think he was the right man for the job. I just don't think it was. There was a lot of things in there that I don't know. It's fine, but it's not a good Halloween. Not if you're making a sequel to. It may have been a better. Maybe I would have felt differently if this was just a remake. All together. And then you would have been like, oh, there's the Rob Zombie remake, and then there's the 2018 remake, and then you could say which one is more in line with the original. Well, the 2018 film would be more in line with kind of, the original. But when you're telling me that this is a sequel, a direct sequel to that first movie, I expect certain continuity to be carried over in terms of visual aesthetic and style. And I don't mean, a lot of people interpret that as, Dave, they can't do that because nobody'd go see it. That's not what I'm talking about. There's a lot of movies that utilize, theater of the mind and mood and atmosphere that you go see, that you watch, that are modern movies that you love. I'm not talking about making a boring movie with no violence or blood. I'm just talking about making a good Halloween movie. And
I said it's a greatest hits album of the entire 40 years of celebrating. That's it. I mean, if I look at it that way, it's a fine film. It's like Dave said, it's a good film to kind of, hey man, what's up? It's been a long time. You look great. Things are great. Okay, great. That's it. It's not one that I'm gonna watch. I don't even own it. No way, I do own it. I forgot.
Yeah, I own it. I bought it because I wanted to.
I wanted for $7.99.
Yeah, I bought it because I would only not buy a movie if I loathe it, like The Last Jedi, and that's sort of what it comes down for me. But I bought it because I wanted to sort of have it. But I haven't watched it. So I have it, but I didn't pop it into my player. I just have it on the shelf. And I don't know when I'll watch it. I may never watch it. I have the digital version because it came with it. So I'd probably have that. That poster, I didn't buy that poster. That was given to me by somebody who works in the film industry, somebody at a high level. And they sent that over to me before the movie was even released. And I keep it up there because it's a cool poster. Poster's good.
Yes, sir.
Cool poster. Anyways, folks, that's going to do it for Tony and I on this episode of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit. We want to thank everybody for joining us. We had, I think our peak was like 270 something people watching. Obviously the Rob Zombie Halloween was a big attraction. Again, my general consensus is that I don't like the movies. I don't like what they did with them. There's a few redeeming qualities I can find. But at the end of the day, I'm not a big fan of Rob Zombie's style. And I just don't like what he does. And he removed the fundamental formula that made the original so good. A special ingredient to the character of Michael Myers is non-existent in his movie. And to me, it's just not, you just can't remove that. As a slasher movie on its own with violence and gore and intensity, it's fine. It's fine. But as a Halloween movie, again, it's kind of like that. I'm not feeling it. And then of course, part 2 is just I wish he would have just done the whole thing on his own, just something completely separate from Halloween. And maybe we wouldn't be having this conversation, but that's how I feel about it. And Tony, you kind of feel the same way, I guess, right?
Yeah. I like the first one. It's one I will watch. I won't watch the second one. Even though I had to freshen it up for this show, but it's not going to be one I'm probably going to watch anytime soon. Short if I ended up on a date with Scout Compton, then that might change my mind a little.
Woo, Scout, if you're watching and if you're single, Tony, come on now.
That could change my mind a little bit.
Come on, Scout. You know you want it.
I mean, look, like I said, I like the first one. It's enjoyable. If it's on, I would watch it. That's kind of that scenario. But it's not one I'm going to be like, I'm going to watch it, every October. No, that's not going to happen.
Right.
Like Dave said, there's redeeming qualities in some of the actors' performances I thought were really well. There's certain scenes. There was a scene, I forgot to mention this, and I want to mention it before we sign off. When oh my God, Jesus, I'm drawing a blank on the sheriff's name in real life. Brad Dourif. Thank you. When he goes to discover Annie's dead, his reaction when he collapses to the ground, I was like, that's a powerful moment. So there's like things like that are like decent.
It's a powerful moment that has nothing to do with screaming, swearing, and white trash.
Exactly. It just totally diminishes and loses its impact because it's surrounded by a fucking shit show.
Right. And then after that, we go back to the. No, I agree. I agree. I mean,
unfortunate. So yeah, but no. This great stream. And
yeah, it was a great stream. I know some people probably expected me to tear a strip off the movies. I could easily have come on here and been like, that's a fucking shit show. What the fucking, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be able to approach it from a more of a constructive, more grounded point of view. So the entire stream was just not me ranting and Tony trying to calm me down. So that's why you heard me approach it the way that I did. But
we got some good shit coming up down the pipe here, guys.
We do. Yes, we do. Now, I believe we should be going back to our regularly scheduled Sunday. I know it's a long weekend coming up this weekend. Are you away? I think it is, isn't it? Maybe it's the next week.
The only thing is that we have this coming Sunday. My nephew is graduating junior high, 8th grade here in the States, and he's going.
Okay.
So we're having
Okay.
a grad party for him on Sunday.
Okay.
Might have to, if Dave works for you next Tuesday, we might have to do another Tuesday here. But
We might have to.
after that, we should be getting back on track here. It's
right. Okay.
with events and stuff happening. And
right. Okay. Well, I will let you guys know if you follow me on Facebook, link in, in the description. I'll also post it in the community section on my channel here, letting you guys know what's up and what's going on and why. So, but yeah, thanks for everybody for tuning in. This has been a lot of fun. Really appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Thanks everybody who contributed via the super chat as well. I think you guys are awesome too. And we'll see you on the next episode of Two Dudes and Some Bullshit, which will be, it'll be a fun one. It's going to be a fun one. All right. We'll talk to you guys soon. Cheers.
Later, guys.